Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the July 17, 2012 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It's my privilege to call tonight's meeting to order. There are agendas setting out what we will be covering tonight at our meeting on either side of the room. In fact, there's a fine resident picking up a copy right now as we speak. If you'd like to also pick one up and follow along with our meeting tonight, there will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on our agenda tonight, as well as a segment early on in the meeting in which we entertain comments of a general nature with respect to items that are not on our agenda. Well, it's a warm night, so I'm going to try to keep how much I talk to a minimum because we don't need to add more hot air to the room. But it is customary for us to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this point in time, I'd like to invite everyone to please stand and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd like to now ask our fine village clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Rankin? Here. Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner Schnell?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. That takes us to item 3 on our agenda tonight, which pertains to minutes of prior council meetings. We have one set of minutes from our July 10, 2012 council meeting. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections from any members of the council with respect to these minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes have been approved. That brings us right to that promised section of our meeting for general comment. Item 4. This is the section of the meeting where we entertain comments of a general nature with respect to matters not appearing on tonight's agenda. So if it's a matter that is on tonight's agenda, there will be an opportunity for comment. Are there any questions or comments from anyone in the audience with respect to items that are not on our agenda? Any general questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward to item 5, public hearings. There are no public hearings tonight, so we will move straight to item 6, which is our consent agenda. There is one item that I will be asking for a motion to remove from the consent agenda and consider separately. Do I have a motion to remove item E, 6E, as an Edward from our consent agenda for separate consideration by the council?
Mayor, sorry, by rule, that just comes off automatically.
But you know, it's so much more fun when we do the motion. And then people understand why we're taking it. You know, sometimes ceremony is important. All right, so there, by the wave of a hand, item 6E has been removed from our consent agenda for separate treatment by the council. That being said, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to the amended consent agenda? Or any items on it? Hearing none. Do I have any questions or comments from any members of the village council with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda except for 6E? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Consent agenda without 6E has been approved. Do I now have a motion to approve item 6E, which would authorize $36,776 membership dues for the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference and our participation in that organization as a village for fiscal year 2012 through 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on that item from any members of the audience? Any questions or comments from any members of the council? Commissioner Barnett?
Mayor, just for a little more explanation, I asked to have this removed from the consent agenda. I appreciate that accommodation, and it's because I'm still not of the opinion that this is a good use and good value. But I know that I'm in the minority, but I just didn't like the idea of going on consent. Thank you for the accommodation.
No worries. Any other Commissioner Neustadt?
Mr. Mayor, having participated in some of the meetings and functions of DuPage Mayors and Managers in the last few months, I also am going to vote no on this issue tonight. I think that we do have some benefits of being a member from the staff perspective, but I haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of value yet. But I do appreciate the efforts that have gone in to try to welcome Downers Grove back to the conference, and if this does pass, I will still participate in whatever capacity that I can, and we'll go from there. So, thank you, Mayor. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Waldeck?
Thank you, Mayor. I do support continuing the relationship with DuPage Mayors and Managers. teaming with other regional governmental entities has been a positive, not only for Downers Grove, but it's also regional as well. Our interests in our community go well beyond our individual borders, and it's important that we do take a regional response, regional activities. And mayors and managers, just one way to do it. You get out of something what you put into it, and we've been out of it for, we took a hiatus for a year. We've only been back for about a year now, and we talk about taking a leadership role. We rejoined the organization, and just because we can't rule the roost in a year doesn't mean that we should take our ball and go home. I do support, I see a value in it. You compare it to other regional organizations like the one in Will County that we were actually talking about joining up for electrical aggregation. And when you do a comparison, we find out, or I believe, that DuPage Mayors and Managers is way ahead of that organization. In the past, when we've lobbied, some years ago when we lobbied for the underpass, we went down to Springfield. We not only got support, we got support from mayors and managers, we got support from the membership as well. It made that underpass not just a Downers Grove issue, but a regional issue as well. And it's something that, you know, we may have to call on again for some other reason. Last time we left DuPage Mayors and Managers, we went out and hired a lobbyist. And I didn't see a whole lot of value in pulling out of a regional organization, getting our own lobbyist. And actually what happened was, if you note, lobbyists made some campaign contributions. I just don't see the sense in going that route again. And I do support mayors and managers, and I think if we continue our membership, I think we will get exactly what we put into it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Rankin?
I do have some of the same concerns about the value of our DuPage Mayors and Managers membership. $36,000 is a great deal of money, and I understand their hesitation. But I do believe that there's a value in the networking aspects that are part of the membership. I know that there are opportunities that would be missed by not being a member, opportunities for grants, partnerships, and key information sharing, and I don't want to miss those opportunities in the future. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Schnell?
A comment. When we join mayors and managers, we don't just join it for the council, we join it for the community. And from my perspective, there are some probably smaller benefits to the members of the council who go to meetings and attend different committee assignments. I think the true benefit to joining mayors and managers is to our staff. And the staff is really the people who run the village on a day-to-day basis. They're the ones that interact with other communities on a daily basis, and those are the ones I think that reap the benefits of belonging to mayors and managers. For that reason, I will be supporting it, because I think the benefit to our staff, what they garner from it, far outweighs the $36,000. To me, it's very important that staff is comfortable with the networking, comfortable with getting the information that they need, and I think by being a member of mayors and managers, we're facilitating that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, I guess I'll speak. Everyone else has, so if I sit quiet, that'll be press news. You know, I support this. I didn't support it the year that we exited the organization, but I think there's been significant changes in the leadership over there. I know that there's been a lot of changes with our council alone and participation at different committees, different leadership. Our sitting mayor, Martin Tully, is on the board, and if all goes per plan, will be one of the incoming presidents in the next couple of years. And I think I'm correct with saying that, but that's the rumbles I hear. If it's news, I guess I just printed the newspaper for everyone. But you know what? We've done a good job of getting back involved.
Can I change my vote?
Better lobby somebody else to go with you. But I just think overall it's a good organization. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that we don't necessarily get involved in at this level. But when there's House bills or Senate bills that are going to have a drastic impact on our community as a whole, you know, they go down to Springfield, you have a chance to go and lobby on behalf of the village. Your overall presentation, the way that the elected officials on there view you when you come to them, unfortunately, you have a little more power, and I think that's something that some of us up here that haven't participated in the Springfield Drive Down are missing out on. Because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and if you're constantly in front of them, if you're constantly at the dinner meetings that go on monthly that I do participate in, you know, we're just elevating Downers Grove to a higher leadership role, which is the concern that we had a couple years ago when we voted to exit the organization. So I think we're in the right mode. I think we're doing the right things, and more importantly, I think our voices have been heard by the membership as a whole at DuPage Mayors and Managers, and they're expecting our involvement. So if we challenge the status quo over there, that's what our job is. We've got to do that, because those are the things we brought to the table and said we didn't like. And if we're not challenging those status quo items, then shame on us for not doing it, because there's a lot that goes on. Yes, $36,000 is a heck of a lot of money. I know that. To me, I look at it, that's a salary of a full-time employee. But at the end of the day, there's so much that goes on that if we were possibly able to break down the true costs and break out the $36,000 to see what our return is, it's going to be a lot more than $36,000. So I will be supporting this again. And I only encourage my fellow colleagues to please participate at a greater level. Committee meetings are great, but you know, go to a dinner meeting. You know, take a trip down to Springfield, or just go to one of their overall meetings that they have outside of the dinner meetings, and you'll see, you know, the golf outing. I participated in that, and there was a lot of great networking that went on with that event. Those were costs that came out of my pocket, so I know there's additional costs that are outside of what the village is paying on the 36, and it's our responsibility. But the overall return is, in my opinion, is it's there. So I'll stop rambling.
Bless you. Thank you, Commissioner. Just from my perspective, it's early, and we obviously are only rejoined DuPage Mayors and Managers about 6 months ago, a little bit more than 6 months ago. Battleships don't turn on a dime. The leadership role that we said we were going to take once we fully engage in the organization has only just begun. So I think it's a little bit premature to judge whether we're getting the return that we expect or not, but I'll comment on that in a moment. The reasons why we left were clear, and to this day, I don't second guess those. I think a message needed to be sent. I think one was sent. I think it was heard loud and clear. At least that's been my experience. But there's strength in numbers, and to be part of an organization where we're one of 33 municipalities who represent the residents of almost the entirety of DuPage County, or at least the municipal segments of it, brings a lot more weight to our voice when we speak to legislators and when we speak to other organizations. We have a greater command of issues, and one of the things that Commissioner Durkin, you said, is that $36,000 is a lot of money. Sure it is. It's $36,000. That's a lot for 1 year to do anything. And I think you said it's about the amount of an employee, a full-time employee. Well, I think of it this way. Is really what we're getting is we're getting the entire organization for $36,000, because what I see from the role that I've played they were kind enough to invite me to join their executive board, is all the managers and the mayors that serve on that board are out there in the community, and when the executive committee decides to take a position on a particular issue that is of mutual benefit to municipalities, Downers Grove included, they're fanning out and doing things that we couldn't do ourselves, that we don't have the staff for, that we don't have the ability for me or you or everyone up here or our staff to be there. Instead, we have the manager of Hinsdale out there representing a position that we are behind at a particular meeting, whether it's with ComEd or it's with a legislator. We can't be everywhere all the time. Our staff can't be everywhere all the time. But when we're part of an organization and when we're part of crafting what the messages are and what the policies are and what the positions are, and then that organization goes out and basically is expressing our views and our opinions and supporting our goals throughout the state and throughout the country on issues of importance, we're getting a lot more than one employee for that $36,000, in my opinion. Now, that said, this is really the first year that we'll have full engagement. And my commitment to it, and I said that we ought to rejoin, was that we ought to go in and grab the wheel. And so that's why, not like I needed more meetings in my life, but I'm on the executive board, and we'll be chairing the Intergovernmental planning committee of DuPage Mayors and Managers, because in particular, collaboration, cooperation, consolidation with other organizations, both public and private, has been a major goal and focus of this organization. And this gives us an opportunity to do that and to help steer this ship. So I'd like to see what this conversation is in a year or two, when we've had the opportunity and the ability to really be part of the direction of the organization, and in my opinion, quite selfishly, to use it as a megaphone where we can broadcast our message and promote our goals on a much bigger stage with much more manpower. And I think that should be a really good return on that $36,000. Not necessarily, it's not like buying a pile of widgets where you can say, what'd you get for your $36,000? Well, I got a pile of widgets over here, I got a car, I got this. It's not always tangible stuff, but it's the ability to express yourself and to pursue goals in ways beyond the resources that you have that I think is the biggest promise of our membership. And so I've made the commitment, I know others have made the commitment, our staff has made the commitment to do what we can to be part of that organization and to use it to advance the goals and advocate the goals of Downers Grove, for Downers Grove, but also for municipalities generally. And I think there's a lot of value to that. And the networking isn't necessarily hanging around and chit-chatting. It's networking with other communities and sharing ideas and figuring out how do we do what we do better for the benefit of our shared constituents. That's really another thing that's hard to measure, but of great value. So I'm in support of it, but to Commissioner Barnett and Commissioner Newstadt's point, I think we need to continue to be mindful of making sure that we're measuring what it is we're getting from it and applying some metrics so that we're not just doing it because we did it last year. That I think would be a mistake. So let's see where it goes. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Commissioner Newstadt?
Nay.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes 5-2. Thank you. That brings us to the end of our consent agenda. Brings us to item 7, which is our active agenda. We have 2 items on our active agenda, 7A and B. First item, 7A. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance amending fire prevention provisions as presented?
Mayor Tully, I move to adopt an ordinance amending fire prevention procedures as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from any members of the Village Council with respect to this item? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes unanimously. Brings us to the second item on our active agenda, 7B as in boy. Do I have a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing a special use to permit an automobile rental facility at 2561-2565 Ogden Avenue in the Village of Downers Grove?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from any members of the Village Council with respect to this item? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter also passes unanimously, and that brings us to the close of our active agenda, and brings us to item 8, which is our workshop or first reading portion of our agenda, where we take up items for discussion purposes only and for action potentially at a later point in time. And once again, we have one item only on our discussion agenda tonight, and that is the proposed contract to naturalize the Valley View Pond. And I know there are a number of folks that are here tonight with respect to this item, but what I would like to do, because we had a lot of discussion last time and there have been a number of options that are outlined, I'm going to flip it so that we hear a little bit from the council and from staff as to what these options are and some of the reactions that the council have, and then we'll entertain public comment on it, because I think it might make sense to sort of hear what people have to say or what their reactions are to some of the different alternatives that are currently under discussion that were not necessarily on the table last week, or last time, excuse me, not last week.
Well, there are many alternatives, and we've identified just a handful. First, of course, is go ahead and naturalize the pond as recommended by staff. Another would be to dredge the pond, but use money generated from the residents through a special service area to cover the incremental cost of that. And just in that option alone, there are 3 or 4 versions that could take, and they are all detailed on our village website. There may be even more versions of how we could do the SSA. But basically, have the residents themselves cover the incremental cost for dredging. Another option could be to convey the pond to the residents. They would form a homeowners association, and we would work with them, give them some seed money that we would have otherwise spent ourselves on the pond, and work with them on the conveyance, and then they could own and maintain the pond as they see fit, of course, within our ordinances and subject to easements and those types of things. If the council would like to explore options 2 or 3, we recommend that you give staff and the neighbors about 60 days to really understand and walk through what these options would look like, the preferences and the comments that we would hear from the residents, and then we would report back to you, both staff and the residents, and then it would be in the council's purview to make a final decision. So we continue to recommend naturalizing. We think that is the financial and environmental sustainable option, but we're open to any of the other options that exist on this paper or that we hear about tonight. Thanks, Mayor.
Terrific, thank you. And I would like to get some thoughts or at least reactions from the council with respect to this, but we obviously have a number of different options here, and want to also hear from what the residents of the area have to say about these two, but I'd like to maybe try to figure out where we're at first. There is one other option, of course, and that is to do nothing, but I haven't heard anybody support that option, which is just to ignore it because it won't go away. Something has to be done. But that would be another option. And then we have the naturalizing the pond per the design-build contract that we discussed previously, or there's the basically dredge it back to the way it used to be 10 or 15 years ago, but at considerable expense. I know that that's a tough sell because of the cost and because of some of the other projects that we've approached where there is the the community village-wide best option, and then there's what is the best option for the neighborhood from their perspective, and those aren't always necessarily, they're always overlapping, but they're not always necessarily consistent. And in those situations, we've had some situations where the neighborhood would sort of step up and do what the village, go above and beyond what the village would do, and I think that's sort of one way of describing what some of these other options are, is what would this look like if there was some neighborhood participation, and what is the neighborhood willing to do, but maybe we'll open it up for discussion and questions from members of the council first, and then we'll go from there. Any questions or comments from the council with respect to these items? Commissioner Newsam?
I'll start. I think that, the staff option of naturalizing is my first choice. However, having seen these other options now, I think we'd obviously be best suited to hear from the residents to see what they have to say. We haven't had a lot of emails or calls or correspondence. I think I've had 1 or 2 emails from the folks over in this area. Naturalizing the pond, to me, seems to make some sense because it'll fix a lot of the things that we're talking about and still allow us to use it as a stormwater conveyance. One of the things in these options that I understand is that even if we were to convey the pond or give the pond back to the homeowners association, if one was created, is that we would still maintain an easement over the entire pond for whatever our use would need to be, and that would have to be followed by the association or the SSA. So I think I'm open to hear what my colleagues have to say, and of course what the residents have to say. I want to be very considerate of the staff time that this would take. 60 days really isn't all that much time, and I think that we have to be very cognizant of the amount of work that we already have our staff doing. Many of you have heard me talk about the 12 action items that we have gone through and are going through this year, and there are some big projects going on right now in our village that a lot of these same types of employees will be working on stormwater utility and other things that are out there. So I just want to make sure that if we set that 60-day expectation, that that's what's going to be able to be delivered. And I'm not going to say that I'm not open for the options. I think that's a good thing for us to do, is to look at things, but I think naturalization does take care of a lot of the issues that we've had with this area and can make some good sense. And there may be smaller options even than what we have here. So let's, we have had neighborhood meetings already in this neighborhood for this option. So we'd kind of be reopening the neighborhood meeting discussion up, seeing what's out there. There's a great table at the bottom of our PDF for Valley View Pond on our website that has some option numbers and then the costs associated with those options. So anybody who hasn't seen that already really should check that out and see, what some of these options might cost for the actual residents in that area. So I appreciate the time that's already gone into this to make this table and kind of come up with these options from the staff's perspective. And I'll be interested to hear what my colleagues and the residents have to say tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else want to jump in, Commissioner?
Oh, no, I think you did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Rankin.
If you'll indulge me for a minute, my mom lives on a pond, so I'm kind of familiar with your plight. She and her 20 neighbors all contribute towards its maintenance. They pitch in to stock it with fish, they treat it for the algae, they fund the aerators. Just like Roby, the only way to access her pond is walking through someone's property. Well, I know that you say that, but I've tried to drive around there and find a public access that isn't shielded. Right, so you have to walk all the way through the park.
There's also one on Roby, and there's also one on the other side of the pond.
Well, that's not my point, though, really, okay? My point are that people who aren't residents that decide to fish at my mom's pond are treated as trespassers.
The town should make it more accessible.
So-
Hold on, folks. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, please. There'll be
You'll all
last
have-
time for public comment. Hold on.
You'll all have an opportunity to speak.
Actually, this is to your benefit because you're hearing what we think first, and then you'll be able to respond to it and actually have an opportunity to think about it. So that's why I want to do it this way. Otherwise, we'd hear from you, and then you'd hear from us. So this way, you'll get our initial thoughts, and this is a workshop. So we're not making a decision tonight. So please, thank you.
So their pond is a private pond, and they are all responsible for its maintenance. I empathize with all of you that want it to remain a pond. My family has made many wonderful memories fishing on the pond that my mom's house is adjacent to. I do believe that naturalizing the pond is really the most sustainable option. As a village, we really need to consider the future impacts of the paths we choose. However, I would like the neighbors to have an opportunity to explore the other options of an SSA or a homeowners association. I just don't feel comfortable using public tax dollars to maintain a private pond. If the residents truly want it to remain a pond, then I believe they should be responsible for its maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Waldeck?
Thank you, as long as we're heading down the line here. I'd like nothing better than to give the residents what they want, to give them a pond. And I want you to know that the way I look at this is more than a financial decision. Fortunately, the Village of Downers Grove is set up financially so that we can do what's best for the community and not just make the cheapest, most financially constrained decision, so we can do what's right. Decisions that were made 30 years ago are not always the best decisions. Currently, the village is spending millions of dollars, actually in Valley View and Nottingham, to repair streets. At the time of the construction, there was state-of-the-art material being used, and over a 30-year period, we found out that state-of-the-art material was trash. And now we're spending millions of dollars trying to fix that. So my point is that if you go back in time, things that seemed like a good idea back then may not be a good idea now. I've been reading about stormwater ponds even beyond what staff has presented. Some engineering from Illinois, going to other states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and other communities. And they've also discovered that the best management practices for stormwater is not necessarily the pond resolution. It's actually they tend to be pushing more the naturalization as being more environmentally sustainable, not just the cheapest. And I think in some of those readings they didn't really talk about cost so much, but the actual engineering and the reasons for doing it that way. Obviously, the developer failed. There are good and bad developers. It's not the village's fault when developers fail. I didn't blame the village when my developer knocked 10 years off of my life arguing with him. You know, we deal with our developers. It's not always dumped on it shouldn't always be the village's fault. I know last time in the meeting, residents talked about the swimming, the fishing, the ice skating. And although conditions are such, you know, who'd want to swim in a smelly, polluted pond where the fish, if aren't dead, have to be really tough. Ice skating is dangerous. The village is responsible for stormwater, and only stormwater. Recreational uses are the purview of the park district, and they want no part of this. We've approached them. They rejected it before. To the best of my knowledge, they still reject it. If there was a way that we could fix this that would be acceptable to them, I'd be open to that. But we haven't heard any positive vibes from the Park District either on this. The body of water is not meant for recreation. No matter what the developer sold, it still isn't a recreational pond. As a matter of fact, the village, in addition to asking each property taxpayer to kick in $20 to $30 for such a pond, would also involve the village's liability in having a recreational responsibilities for the pond. So from a stormwater standpoint and the ongoing financial drain, the dredging and maintenance pond is not really the best course of action. And if the residents want to take on additional responsibilities, if the Park District would suddenly take an interest to this, I'm all for exploring opportunities. Like you say, I'd love to give you a pond. It just doesn't seem to make financial sense to the rest of the village. And, you know, we are not ward, we aren't a ward system of government where we can represent one single neighborhood versus the interests of the entire village. We have to take in consideration the entire village. And as the mayor pointed out in the past, there are other situations this could set a precedent. And I don't know, if we can, if the residents look at this, try to look at this objectively. If there's a way you can get involved through an SSA or other means, I'm all for exploring that. We don't have to really rush into this, rush into a long-term decision. So I'm all for allowing the staff to allow the 60 days or whatever, even if it takes longer, to come up with a good solution. Let's do that. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Schnell, let's go down the line.
Excuse me. I have some reservations about each of the proposals that have been given to us. I'll start with the 900,000 dredging. My concern has always been that the estimate of the dredging actually lasting 20 years, I think, is totally unrealistic. Having at one time had a lake house and having had it dredged and knowing how quickly it filled in, and looking at the notes that staff gave us that the east side was dredged in 2006 and is now filled in, realistically, I don't think it's going to last 20 years. I'm not an engineer. I could be wrong, and I understand that. I just don't think realistically it's going to last 20 years. So are we then spending $900,000 or an additional $400,000 and some odd thousand dollars of the taxpayers' money to provide a pond for maybe 10 years, if we're lucky, 10, maybe 15 years? I don't know, excuse me, if that is the best use of taxpayers' dollars. I do, as the manager and I have talked about this at length, I do have some concerns with the naturalization, the $522,000 option, the $522,000 option, in that I think if indeed we decide to go that route, we really need to hold NCAP to the fire as far as producing what they're saying they're going to produce. I sat here with a project at 40th and Glendenning many years ago that was supposed to be a naturalization plan and granted 15, 20 years is a long time with what has been learned, but it did not go according to plan, and it did not meet the expectations of the neighborhood. And that's a concern with this project, that indeed if we move ahead with that, move ahead with it with the neighbors not wanting it, that if indeed it does not meet expectations, ours and theirs, that we're going to have some major problems. So I think if indeed we decide to go with the naturalization plan, we are going to have some very strict guidelines, shall we call them, that will actually hold them responsible for it turning out the way they're proposing it's supposed to turn out. I don't think we did that when we did 40th and Glendenning because it was a joint project with the county. Did you want to say something?
No, that's right. It was a county-led project.
Okay. But we were still involved in it, and our residents were involved in it. I'm the only one up here who had to live through that, but it does taint the way I'm looking at this. And we've talked about it, and I think when you told me lots of things have changed in 15 years or whatever since that project was put in. And hopefully they have, and hopefully there's a lot more information available. Naturalization, I know, was discussed years ago when we were at Mayors and Managers about the benefits to naturalizing ponds, putting in plants that would help to filter water and all those wonderful things. So there are benefits. I just want to make sure if we go that route that it's done right and that we're held responsible and we give the residents what if indeed that's what we decide to do, what we're proposing to be done. From what staff has presented to us, there is $522,000 of the village's money that they feel that should be committed to a stormwater project. Similar to other projects in the village over the years where residents have wanted enhancements that the village at that time could not pay for, SSAs were made available to those residents to further enhance the neighborhood, to further enhance things that they perhaps wanted in the neighborhood that the village could not afford to do. I have no problem exploring with the residents the possibility of either doing a full dredging or doing the kind of $700,000 option, which was is in the questions and answers. I think that would be beneficial. If nothing else, I think it would be beneficial to the residents to understand that it's a stormwater detention facility. It's not a recreational lake. And because it's not a recreational lake that's run by the Park District, there are certain guidelines that may come into place that would restrict recreational opportunities, shall we say, in the pond if it was dredged. So from that kind of perspective, I think it would enable the residents to have a better understanding of, if indeed they spent the extra money on SSA, what they really could do with the pond, besides look at it and say it's really pretty and it's an enhancement to them. I'm leaning towards the first option, similar to Commissioner Neustadt, and I think the rest of my colleagues. I still, as I said, have reservations about that. I also have reservations about staff time. And if indeed we commit to a 60-day time window, I'm afraid what that is going to do to our 12 goals for the year that obviously we're holding staff to. And I think we need to be very careful of trying to do what the residents want and talk to the residents and try to educate them and help them organize themselves, but also keep on track for what we have to do for the rest of the village. And obviously that's the manager's responsibility, and I'm sure he's capable of doing it. There's just, with budget coming and all the work that has to be done by each department, I'm not sure that we're setting people up to fail, and that's a concern of mine. For now, that's all I'm saying. But I am going to be very interested to listen to the residents and see what they have to say and see. My guess is I know what direction they want to go, but again, just get some feedback from them about naturalization and what, if that was done, what their perceptions are.
This is the only item we're discussing.
I know.
Mr. Durkin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First, I would support option one. That's one I support the most. I would be interested in what the residents would want to do with option two or option three. The only question I have is is this a project that we need to get done this calendar year, or because it's sat so long and time has gone on, could this be moved or looked at, depending on what the residents want to do?
It can be moved.
2013.
It can be moved. In fact, the naturalization design build is a 2-season process anyway. So we have the time to look into this. And just for clarification, in that 60-day window, we would only discuss the options. We wouldn't actually implement an association. We wouldn't actually come up with an SSA. That would have to be put on the 2013 work plan if any of those options were chosen. So yes, we can.
Yeah, although it should be noted, as we all know, is that whenever you put off a major capital project of any sort, and this certainly would qualify it, no matter what option we're looking at, the costs only go up. So talking about it only makes it worse.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Can I just do one quick one?
Yeah, sure.
How long is the bid from NCAP good for?
Usually they're good for about 30 days.
Okay, so we're already past that.
We could check on the status of that.
Could you, just to know?
Yeah, well, I'm talking, they got kicked the whole of the year.
No, I know, but even if we kick it to 60 days, if indeed the bid is no longer valid,
I'm sure
and
we
it's
could-
going up.
I'm sure we could work
Well,
on that.
well, but I
That
think
I'm-
we need to
fair
know.
question, but
We need to
that
know.
I'm less concerned about than if it was,
Okay. I'll-
time is not your friend.
No.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Yeah, that's right, don't worry about it. So the, hang on, I lost my train of thought here. Don't worry about it, it's not you, lack of sleep. So if we were to move on this next, or when we meet next, and if we do decide what option one, because that's the direction that the residents gave to us, would there be any work started in 12, or would we be looking at starting, actually, where you could actually see not planning or the planning process, but the actual movement of earth?
No, in either case, the construction would be at least 2013.
Okay.
The permitting aspects of a design build and something this complicated are lengthy. So if we awarded the contract to NCAP in the next couple of weeks, what they would do is start designing, holding the neighborhood meetings, and then start applying for the various permits that are required, and then construct it next year.
Okay. Because I did drive through the Orchard Brook area, and I know we have a coffee with council there on Saturday, and, under the comment that the mayor
July
made.
21st.
Yeah, under the comment you made at the last meeting about this. To me, that is what belongs back here, only because of the history of it resulting in and not working to the expectations that we as a village had, or the homeowners in that area, so that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Burnett?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll try not to just repeat my colleagues, but a lot of what Commissioner Weldeck and Commissioner Schnell said in particular were on my mind, and I think are insightful into where to go with this. The purpose of this pond, its primary purpose for the village at large, is stormwater control. And as Bill said, we learn things over years. And certainly we could find out 30 years from now that naturalization is a bad call, but we take our best practices as we think they exist today. And so other options to me are only interesting if we, by learning from our past, recognize that it's going to silt in 6 years down for part of it, or 30 years down, whatever it is, it's going to get dug out again. And so any sort of plan beyond naturalization, because we believe that's our best practice right now in terms of being sustainable, low cost, lowest life cycle cost, in my mind is going to have to be burdened with whatever, better legal minds than I can dream up about future guarantees and lien rights and various things to assure a couple of things. One is that we have complete control of the stormwater at all times, because that's what it's there for. And when it silts in 6 years, if the SSA doesn't have the money, or the homeowners association disbands or gets in a fight with each other or whatever, there's still recourse for the village to get stormwater control from that area. So I'm not ruling out items 2, 3, or 17, or any idea that this group and our staff and the residents might come up with. But for me, because we know the purpose, and because the sustainability and the long-term costs are best with those current best practices, anything over that has got to be structured in such a way that this council is not obliging future councils and future residents to what we know are going to be increased costs down the road. So, if somebody wants to make it a pond, they make it a pond, but we got to end up assured through various legal mechanisms, whatever are available to us, and funding mechanisms, that 15 years from now, when these people aren't sitting up here and half the residents aren't sitting out there, the village as a whole still has total authority to end up with not spending more money to get the stormwater control we need. So I don't know if that's even possible, but that's the driving force for me. So I don't know if that says much or very little, but that's the driving decision. To me, that's the decision-making process. It's got to stay as an effective stormwater tool, long-term, without adding future likely costs to us.
Let me just pick up on that, and also something that Commissioner Waldeck said. And this goes back to my comment about, what is our role? Our role is to make the best decision on behalf of 48,000 people, not just the neighborhood, but the entire community. And you're absolutely right, and I think that's a good way to put it, Commissioner. What was the purpose of this? What is the purpose of this for the community? The purpose for the community is to serve stormwater interests. So our job is to, because we represent the community at large, everybody, is to come up with the most cost-effective, sustainable solution to keep that a stormwater facility in this community? What is the most cost-effective, sustainable solution? Doing nothing is not a cost-effective, sustainable solution, so that one's off the table. I do not believe that dredging this is a cost-effective, sustainable solution. It just isn't. It's twice the cost, it's a substantial amount of money, and it's going to just be a problem again down the road. All we're doing is throwing a lot of money at a problem that's just going to reoccur down the road. It's not a sustainable, cost-effective solution. Naturalizing it is a far more cost-effective, sustainable solution, and obviously nobody knows what's going to happen 20 years from now, but it certainly, as you said, Commissioner, appears to be the most cost-effective, sustainable solution. Is it the only cost-effective, sustainable solution? Well, that's why we're talking about these other options. That's why we do want to hear from the neighbors about what can we do to maybe work with you, because obviously this is something that's very important in your neighborhood. I suspect that the entire community, 48,000 people, would not want to pay more money to have a pond there. I'm just telling you, they're not going to. That would not be, you'd be outvoted 47,000 something to 50. And that's how we have to look at it. But if we can work with the neighborhood to help them help themselves and achieve more than what the community would be willing to do, I'm open to that. And I'm open to allowing the time to let you guys think that through and see what the neighborhood would support. People need to understand what the investment is. People need to understand what they want. Obviously, some people might want a Cadillac solution. Other people don't want a Hyundai solution, not to disparage any car makers. But this is also consistent with what we've done in the past. And I'm not going to say that we have ponds necessarily, but there are other situations where the village has a plan and a budget to go through and come up with a cost-effective, sustainable solution for, say, a road reconstruction. Well, the neighborhood might want to have curb and gutter. They might want to have sidewalks on both sides of the street, but that's not in the village plan, because the community is not going to support sidewalks on both sides of the street, curb and gutter for that neighborhood. This cost-effective, sustainable solution is to simply reconstruct the road and keep it with ditches along the side of the road. But the neighborhood wants more. In those situations, we have worked with neighborhoods where if they want to do an SSA or come up with some other way where they can make up that delta between what the community will support and what they would like for their neighborhood, we've been willing to invest the time and effort and the facilities, quite frankly, the village can provide to facilitate that within reason, to Commissioner Newstadt's point, to make it happen. And sometimes the neighborhoods do that. And they'll put in the extra to have curb and gutter and all that stuff. And other times they decide, well, maybe I don't want it that much. I'm better off with this other solution. But that's a neighborhood decision. And that's where our responsibility is to deal with the community solution. And then if we can come up with a neighborhood solution that's consistent with the community solution, then that's a win-win. What we can't have is a neighborhood solution that's inconsistent with the community solution because our obligations are to the broader community. So I think if we were left with nothing but either dredging or naturalizing, then I think it's naturalizing because that's the community solution. That's the bigger goal that has to be served. But again, if we can do something within serving the bigger goal of the community that will give the neighborhood that above and beyond that they're interested in, I'm perfectly willing to entertain that within reason. And how that can be done, I think there are different ways to skin that cat. There's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. And I mean, you could have, I'm just talking off the top of my head here, you could have where the neighborhood takes it over, but even that has risks. Because what happens if the neighborhood goes bankrupt? Who's going to end up being saddled with this? You got it, the village. So you have to set up some kind of financial mechanism whereby funds or guarantees are being put into place over time so that if that happens, the neighborhood suddenly decides that they just want to walk away from this and stick us with a pond. And not you guys, but I'm thinking 25 years from now. That there is some mechanism by which to maintain that. And that would be a long-term, sustainable, cost-effective solution because it would spell out what the obligations are, the responsibilities, and most importantly include an enforcement mechanism and a source by which to pay for it, which, again, that can be done. It's more complicated, but that's one possibility. There's been talk about the Park District. We've only talked to them informally, but it's the kind of thing where if there's serious desire within the neighborhood to turn that into a Park District facility, you have a separately elected Park District that represents you. I would encourage you to speak to them about it, because they are the ones that would engage that. But also consider this: if you really want to turn a private pond into a public facility, where's the parking going? Where are the picnic groves going to go, where people want to hang out in your backyards and grill? I mean, be careful what you ask for. If you truly want to turn this into Barth Pond or something like that, you're going to get everything that goes along with it. So there are balances here, but if that's truly something that the neighborhood is interested in, I would encourage you to go directly to your elected representatives of the Park District and find out. I mean, I don't know whether that's something that would ever be possible or they would be interested in or not. I don't know, but that's a separate entity. If it truly is going to become a community recreational facility, then that is a Park District mission. That's not a village mission. But the point of my going on like this is that there are, within reasons, things that we would be more than happy to work with the neighborhood on exploring. And we've only touched upon some of them that would take what the community is willing to invest and then adding to that what the neighborhood would like to go on top of it. And I don't know how much the neighborhood would want or how much they're willing to invest in that or how much they're willing to participate in that, but that is something that we're willing to consider, and we've done that before in other circumstances. And I think that, that's the proposal, is the $500,000 the village would invest, the village will invest $500,000. But if there's some other option that would cost more than that, that would still meet the risk and sustainability goals the community has, we can certainly entertain that. My only caution is if we talk about this for 2 years, the cost of doing anything only go up. And that depletes the village investment, and it only makes any neighborhood investment more expensive. And we learned that with the Belmont underpass. The longer it took to get that done, the more the price went up, to where at some point in time it becomes cost prohibitive to do anything, and I don't think anybody wants that. Before opening up to questions from the audience or comments from the audience, any other questions from the council or comments? And we're not finished, and we want to hear from you, and then we may have more comments. Anything else up here from now on? But I wanted to give everyone the benefit, at least where our heads are at tonight. We're not making a decision tonight. And also, we're all very interested to hear what level of interest there might be in the neighborhood in participating in this above and beyond.
Mayor, I got one question for staff. If we could get, and I thought I saw it, but I can't find it, so it's probably out there. But the life cycle cost kind of analysis that we've done on a variety of subjects, from fire trucks to Grove Street, et cetera. I guess I'd like to see those on this, the naturalization, because there's some future maintenance requirements for naturalization.
Yes, it's about $5,000 or so a year.
Yeah, so, but quantifying that versus, pick something, 10 or 15 years, having it dredge again. It's those future costs that I'm so reluctant to commit future councils to. But I'd like to kind of see those parallel to each other, if we could.
Yeah, and just that point, I mean, if there is a scenario under which they could be dredged the way some have requested, but then there's going to have to be a lot of other things that go along with that to make sure that there's no additional risk and cost and whatnot in future enforcement, and that would require an investment as well. Commissioner Rankin?
I just wanted to clarify, too, my points about access were very similar to what the mayor was saying, is that if it was a public pond, there would be pathways and walkways and parking and access, and that's all I was trying to illustrate. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
Just a question, do we have any examples of naturalized stormwater detention areas that have been around for 10 to 15 years? Anecdotal pictures, whatever we want to do, so we can kind of just get an idea of, once it's done, planted, its success, its, how much silt is coming in, how the plants have worked. We may have had some of that information here, but if, just for, reference, if we could have something like that.
We'll go out and take some shots of the Orchard Brook area. I think that's the best example. We just installed one at Second and Cumner. It's not fully grown yet on the plants, so we'll monitor that as well. We could probably come up with some other photos for you as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open it up for public comment questions. The protocol is please come down to the podium, give us your name and address, and we welcome hearing from you. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Louis Stankaitis Jr. I live at 6910 Waterfall, and residents, please, if you can, we have a clipboard that's been being passed around. Make sure everyone gets their email and contact information on that clipboard, just so we can communicate better together amongst us as a community. I just want to throw another wrench into the spokes of things. I've had an independent contractor who's a friend of mine by the name of AQS Services come out and give me a quote for a dredging option, and he's come well within the $500,000 parameter. So he says that he can do it. We're looking at about 6 feet, somewhere in the same tonnage that we've seen in the $900,000 proposal, and we would, like to see if we can investigate that possibility. This way, as far as residents putting skin in the game, it's not as much skin in the game as it was with the $900,000 solution. Is that something that the council could be looking at?
Speaking only for myself, and I appreciate you sharing that information with us, and I'd also obviously want to know whether AQS Services was looking at the RFP that the village put out, because obviously...
Yes, they did.
Okay, then they were basically, I wonder why they didn't bid on it in the first place.
This is all after the fact. I mean...
I know, but it was out there, and...
There was no public bid. I mean, we're just being involved in it right now.
Just for clarification, absolutely, there's a public process for the request for proposals.
It has to be, it's always
Yes.
a public process. It's not-
Well, we didn't know about it. You guys just got your consultants involved and came up with this single quote, so now I'm saying that I can get, I can beat that.
We actually have more than a single quote.
Mayor, there's a section on our website that lists all the bids and procurements for not only bids and RFPs, but for purchasing. It's all public information documents. It's open to the public to even go through and see what's out there for bid, so.
And we've seen what your price is, and I'm saying that
But-
I can do
The
it
lowest one,
cheaper.
there was even a higher one.
But we did not go out for bid for the dredging. We had a staff estimate for dredging.
naturalization.
We went
That is
out to bid
correct.
for naturalization.
That is correct. The only thing we put out for a competitive proposal was the naturalization option.
Right.
So if we were to put out a bid for dredging, it would have to be a public document.
Correct.
Very similar to the one that we went out for naturalization.
Correct, and we would have to prepare the bid specs to make sure that everybody responding to the call for bids has the same information about the soils and what we require and permitting and insurance and all the things that would go in to a bid, which is different than a request for proposal.
Okay, thanks. Just for
Okay,
clarification.
well, at any rate, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. So, and I guess the question was, all right, that actually makes it, he wasn't looking at any proposal. That was just sort of the guy looking at it saying, here's what I'll do. What I don't know is, would he be able to do it for that cost to the village's standards? Because he doesn't know what the standards are, because if there was no...
Well, that's what I'm saying. Right now, at the preliminary, I can hook him up with your guys, and he seems to think he can come in within that ballpark.
Right, but I think the mayor's saying that there's certain standards that they would have to come in with their bid based upon, not just I'm looking at this.
Give it a try.
Well, if your question is whether we put the dredging out to bid,
That's not my question. My question is that I have a solution that we think we can do it for
we
$500,000.
can't do it that way. We have to follow a public process. We would have to actually put together formal bid documents, announce it to not just that company, but anybody who would want to bid on it. There are certain standards they have to meet. There are certain ordinances and codes they have to meet. The guy can't just walk up and thumb it and say, I'm going to do it for $500,000. Can't do it that way. That would be, we'd have 10 times more people here yelling at us, because that would violate a public process.
All that being said, which staff agrees with everything the mayor has just said, of course, if there's something in writing from a company, we'd like to take a look at it. Just to
Yes,
review
which
it.
is why the first thing I said is, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Yes, I'd like to see it. But
And we will provide that for you.
please do, I'd like to see what it is, but in order to actually do it, we couldn't just take that guy's quote and run off and do the project.
No, I understand that, but I'm just, we're not making any decisions now, and just like as much as you're not making any decisions now. And last time we were here, I asked you, Mayor, personally, if I can find somebody that can do it within that range. You said you would be willing to take it. And so I have somebody that has looked at it, ballparked it, and that's kind of what they've come up with.
We would absolutely like to see that.
Well, there we go. So I'm going to have my guy talk to your guy, and maybe we can start this whole wonderful thing all over again. Thank you very much for your time.
And that's why the first thing I said was, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We'd absolutely like to see it. And I'm sorry if I misunderstood where you were going with that. My apologies.
No, that's all.
Thank you, sir.
My name's
Good evening.
Roger Ginchorek. I live at 6900 Roby Avenue. I do not live directly on the pond. I live one lot off the pond, backing to O'Brien Park. I have received a packet of correspondence, specifications, and drawings and news articles dating back to 1983 that one of my neighbors has been collecting. Now, I'm going to read something that I wrote up this afternoon. Now, according to these memos that are in here, the village was sending out, requesting information about the pond, and said it would be seeded and finalized. This was probably around 83, 84. Well, nothing happened there. 1986, the specifications were for improvements to the pond and drawings issued. Nothing happened there. The village then took possession of the pond when the Park District developer, as we all know, failed to meet an agreement. You took possession of it in 1988. From the packet of information that was published on your website, questions and answers, you took it over in 1988, then you became our neighbor, and my words, one, that we would find out you would fail to maintain the pond. The first sign of any maintenance was 1992 with installation of riprap around the perimeter of the pond to reduce erosion. The next maintenance was performed in 2006 with a pipe replacement and dredging on the inlet on the east end of the pond. At that time, this pond sat neglected for 14 years. Since that time, there have been various attempts at algae reduction, aeration, and maintenance on the aerators. Not 1 hour has been expended at weed control, cutting, or maintaining the property, banks, or retaining walls. More time and energy, expenses, and outside consulting fees have been spent to explore how to naturalize the pond than it has been to care for it. Now I'm going to draw your attention to the Village Council policies. Resolution 95-15, wetlands and natural stream configuration and preservation thereof. It's on your website. The resolution is that it shall be the policy of the village to preserve wetlands and natural stream configurations in the village in order to utilize inherent water cleansing action and flood control potential and to protect wildlife habitats in accordance with Chapter 26 of the Downers Grove Village Municipal Code. The second item, and Mr. Waldeck, you said your responsibility was only for the stormwater. I differ. Under Resolution 2009-91 of your policies, if you go to page 4, surface maintenance. Surface maintenance means that the normal and usual maintenance of the ground conditions in, over, and around the stormwater control structures. This includes mowing and removal of the debris which accumulates over and around the inlets, outlets, manholes, catch basins, and siltation basins. This also includes work to preserve or restore the aesthetic qualities and features of the stormwater control structure. You're responsible. You failed to maintain it. Under Section G, maintenance of stormwater control structures and creek channels. Item 1, in general, it is expected that the village will provide functional maintenance and surface maintenance for any village-owned stormwater control structure. This is pretty basic, and it's pretty much in black and white, that you have failed to maintain that pond. To say the least, my consideration is the owner of the pond, the Village of Downers Grove, has not been a good neighbor in maintaining the area in fashion similar to the neighborhood that it is located in. Now, the last item in the question and answer information package has got 4 options on how to fund the project if a special service area was created to cover the increased cost of dredging. I disagree. There should be 6. But I'm going to back up to what you stated not long ago, that options 2 and 3, you would work with a committee or homeowners association, and you would turn the pond over to them. Are you saying you would turn over a piece of contaminated property and expect them to then be responsible for the cleanup? Number one, I don't think any person in a legal profession would permit that to happen. Number two, I don't think the EPA would permit that to happen. Three, I think as a resident in the village and in Valley View Estates, there is no way I'm going to take for free a piece of contaminated property and be liable to clean it up. The two options that I think need to be added to this. Option 5, it should include everybody in the watershed should contribute to the dredging, which according to item 8 in these questions and answers, includes portions of 75th Street, Fairview Avenue, Main Street, and Lamont Road. There's really more than 400 acres there. We're closer to a square mile. Square mile is 640 acres. Option 6, you move ahead with the naturalization project without regard to the negative impact on the 34 property values adjacent to the pond. The village has two obligations here. They must answer to the citizens of Downers Grove on how the funds are spent, which you indicated, but they also have an obligation to these same citizens not to allow a project to move forward that will have a negative financial impact on their property values. Now, I offer 3 courses here for you people. As I said, I'm not directly on the pond. 1, you call the Army Corps of Engineers, 601-634-5821. Talk to the regulatory people. They control navigable waterways. Prentice Creek can be construed as a navigable waterway wherever it's on the surface of the ground. You talk to them. You say, this is what the village wants to do. What do you think? 2, you call the Illinois EPA Bureau of Land and Water. You talk to them. Tell them what's on the table. 3, you call the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, Water, and you tell them that eliminating this pond is going to have a negative impact on the migratory waterfowl and wildlife that use this pond on an annual basis. Now, you people have got a difficult decision to make, I realize that, but I think you're going to have to choose wisely on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yes.
We are trying to maintain it by doing something. We've already said that maintaining, not doing anything is not an option. It's a question of how, to what extent, and at what cost.
But, Mr. Mayor,
Sir, excuse me.
I've
Sir?
not seen a blade of grass.
Gotta come to the microphone.
First of all, I can't hear you standing back there,
Fine.
and no one else at home can hear you standing back there. And I know you want to be heard by everyone at home.
I want to be heard by everybody.
That's why I'm asking you to come.
Over the 32 years that we've lived there, and for the 24 years that this village has owned that piece of property, I have never seen a village lawnmower, tractor, sickle, whatever you want to call it, cutting weeds or maintaining that pond area.
I got that. I can't go back 24 years in time and bring.
I realize that.
So we're talking about what to do going forward. And the one thing we are talking about is doing something and spending a substantial amount of money on
I
that.
realize it's a substantial amount of money.
The point about, do we have to maintain it? Yes, we're doing something.
Then let's-
We're not, it's not that we have a room full of people here who are saying, please do something about the pond, and we're saying, no, we're not spending one dime on it. I understand there may be sins of the past. I can't go back in time and do anything about that. What I can do is how do we come up with the best sustainable economic solution going forward, number one. Number two, contribute? You betcha. Where do you think that $500,000 is coming from? Not just the people in the watershed, everybody in this community. So that's why I was talking about the community solution and the neighborhood solution. The community solution is being paid for by not just the people within that square mile, but people who will never even, who don't even know where that pond is.
Over 24 years that you've owned it, if you would have set aside $20,000 a year for future maintenance of that pond, you would have over $500,000, you would probably with interest have over $700,000 in a bank in an escrow account to add to the $500,000 that you want to spend to naturalize it. You would have your money.
Except then we would have been having this very same conversation as to whether to put those kind of funds away for one private pond. And we may have been having this very...
If you set that money aside for that pond.
Oh, please. But that's, again, a policy decision. And you're assuming that that would have been the decision made back then.
It's hindsight, isn't it?
Everything is hindsight.
And it's always 20/20. Now we have to move forward.
If I could go back in time, we wouldn't have owned the pond.
If I could go back in time, I wouldn't be here. I'd be retired somewhere in Florida.
But at any rate, I just want
Yes.
to point that out. The two main points I got from you, we are actually taking action in that regard.
I would like to see
Not in
some...
the way that I think some would like, but
I would like to see some action by village crews getting out there and mowing down the overgrowth around the pond. It's terrible.
Okay, well,
We got 3 and 4 feet tall weeds.
maintenance in the interim is a fair question.
Is maintenance here tonight?
I'm agreeing with you. You might want to stop while you're ahead.
Good point. Thank you.
Mayor, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
If there's comments, we really need you to come to the microphone. The comments from the audience are hard for us to hear and anybody else. It just sounds all muffled. So we'd appreciate it if you come to the microphone.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, John Peters, 1041 Roby. After we got the notes that the staff put together, I left an email for the village manager, I think it was last night after hours, and I had a response from the staff before 8 o'clock this morning, and thank you for that. I appreciate that. I don't want to take a lot of time, but I want to separate the facts from the anecdotal data. It's not a private area. The public goes in there, and they had gone in there up until the past 2 years. Downers Grove South cross-country team runs through there in training. There used to be a Cub Scout troop, I believe, out of St. Joe's. Would come over there a couple times a year, have a fishing derby, do some nature studies. They don't come anymore because there's no fish. So it's not private. It's public, and it's available, and it's accessible.
I don't think it's only my opinion. You're addressing.
That's okay. I'm not.
Hold on, let's all not try to interrupt him.
Yeah, I'm not.
Please, go ahead, sir.
I'm not. I'm just saying, just trying to separate facts from the anecdotal data, and linking this project with the water and sewage work that's costing a lot of money going on in that same subdivision. I don't understand that either. They're two separate things. So why try to link them that? Oh, we're spending a lot of money in your area. We don't want to spend any more. It didn't make sense. Dredging. We heard 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. The fact is, other than a little bit of work they did at the inlet, that pond had never been dredged for 40 years since it was first put in. So it's not going to have to be dredged 10 years from now, obviously depending on how much you remove. But it's not going to have to be. So it's not, we're going to do this 2 years from now. Okay. A couple other things. One is from the notes from the village council meeting back in October 24th, 1988. The village attorney at the time said that the village will accept the Valley View Lake for maintenance. And the attorney goes on to state that if the council concurs with this settlement agreement, a motion to approve would be appropriate this time. So Commissioner Kopis moved to approve it. Commissioner Snell moved to second it, and that motion was approved unanimously. So my question is, because I don't know, so what a council did previously, we can just say doesn't count anymore, because the council agreed to maintain the lake, but now we're just saying doesn't count. I don't know. I'm asking, I guess. Does anyone have an answer to that?
Well, I mean, it depends. I haven't read what you're looking at, sir, so I don't want to hazard an answer, but I think there's a lot, A, there's more to it than that. B, I think, well, for example, there was a resolution of a lawsuit, and the vote was probably at the tail end of that, and in large degree was probably dictated by the outcome of the case. That's what I don't have in front of me. I don't know if you have that handy or not. I don't know. But the other part of it is that, you know, there was the maintenance of, I think it was the descriptive term. I don't think that necessarily means it had to be maintained as a lake for all purposes at the end of time.
But it
I wouldn't
is-
construe it that way.
It did say maintain the lake.
Well, because you had to call it something. It'd be like saying the car. It doesn't mean it has to be a Ferrari. It's a car. I think that was just a descriptive term. I don't think that meant to maintain it as in,
Just for clarification, the motion was to approve a settlement of a suit authorizing acceptance of the Valley View Estates Lake by the village. And it goes on to talk about some compensation there. But that was the actual motion that was voted on.
so they didn't even mention maintenance.
Right, it's just the title to the property. We would basically, what the concept was, is that as a settlement to the lawsuit, the village would take title to it, own it, and maintain it.
But I think the point was maintain it, not it wasn't
Correct.
like a,
It means it's our property.
it wasn't a covenant running with the land to keep it a lake till the end of time.
That is correct.
That's the distinction I'm making.
I don't know, I don't have my reading glasses with me, but
Took your head at me, I didn't even have it in front
I
of me.
beg the difference. And then on the notes from the last time, you know, facts, purple martins eat a tremendous amount of mosquitoes, and so do dragonflies. But the proposal doesn't talk about how you're gonna get purple martins. You're gonna relocate them from somewhere to get them over there? Because we know that the naturalization proposal has some standing water on it because it's a marshy area, and it's going to produce mosquitoes. And the solution was purple martins. Do they just automatically come, or what? And again, fact from anecdotal data.
And I don't know the answers to the wildlife questions. Those are fair questions. I don't know the answer.
And then another thing is, in the notes was the village staff, with all the construction work going on, the busy season, busy time, the staff would not be able to prepare a call for bids, and they would have to send the call, get a consultant to prepare a call for bids to have it dredged. But why don't we wait till the unbusy season? And we know that the staff is very, very, very good at estimating, but why don't we wait till after the busy season when staff has time to go out and prepare a bid and prepare a quote and get bids on dredging the property?
Well, let me interrupt there and just apologize that I was confusing thank you for straightening me out, the bids on the naturalization with the bid the gentleman was talking about earlier with respect to the dredging. It was my mistake. I missed that. And I understand what you're talking about. If there's a bid for the dredging project that is less than the amount we're talking about, the naturalization, obviously we'd be interested in seeing that. I can't speak for myself or the members of council as to whether that would still be a sustainable solution going forward, but obviously it's something we'd like to see.
Well, I think in the notes, it says here something about, and I'm talking about these very well-prepared notes. It says something about we can't, the village, and I'm paraphrasing, but the village doesn't have time because of the construction and how busy they are, which is totally understandable. Won't have time to go out and make a call for bids for dredging, and they would have to hire a consultant. It would cost maybe $5,000. So my question is, why don't we just wait till we're not busy and construction season's over and do it that way? That was my point.
Well, the question is, could we wait and not do nothing for another year? Yes.
Well, we've waited, I waited 15.
But I'm getting the sense that waiting and for costs to go up and things get worse is not anything that anyone's interested in.
Waiting is not a problem. It's the not having a timeline for the proper solution that tends to be the problem. So we can say, yeah, we'll wait 60 days, we'll wait 120 days, but after that point, if we still don't have a viable solution, then...
Well, let me ask you this, sir, because no one's commented on it yet. Are there any other alternatives that anyone has any interest in? All I've heard is there was this comment that there is a bid or a quote or something for dredging that is going to be less than what our estimate is. Obviously, we'd like to see that. But is there any interest in
well, I think the
anything other than naturalize and dredge?
Well,
Are those the choices we're being left with?
I think what I'm hearing is $900,000 for dredging, and that is an estimate, and probably a very valid estimate, I don't know, but I'm hearing $900,000 for dredging, and the village doesn't have a $900,000. I understand that.
Well, that's part of it.
But the fact is it really $900,000, or should we go through the proper process and do a call for bid and find out what it really would cost to dredge it?
Right, and I understand that, but that's only part of it. Also keep in mind that, is that the best practice? Is that a sustainable solution? Let's say we could dredge it for $500,000. Is that still, as you put it, is that still the right thing to do? I'm not so sure.
All right, well, I think that should be debated, continue to be debated.
Well, absolutely, that's what we're doing.
But to me, that's, for me and for my neighbors, I think that's the most comfortable position.
I understand that.
All right. And I just have one final thing to say is, the last time we talked about the leaves and the runoff and pollutants, I don't know what the proper name of it was for, that as long as you don't eat it, it won't hurt. But with this naturalization, when we get water, it's going to rise above the base of those plants. And isn't that just going to lay on top now? And when all the leaves blow off from not only the park, but from all the trees in the neighborhood blow in there, aren't they going to settle on top? Instead of falling to the bottom of the pond, aren't they not going to settle on top of the naturalized plants? And, you know, the plastic bags from the grocery store that, you know, we fish out of the pond for the owner, where are they going to go? So is that naturalization really going to improve anything? Is it going to improve the quality of what's in there now, except for maybe making it more friendly for mosquitoes and purple martins? I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you. I didn't take that as a question. I took
that was rhetorical. But honestly, if the stuff is bad and it's on underneath the water, when we put plants in there, and there's going to be water on top of the plants, and the stuff that's going to the bottom is now going to be sitting on the top. Have we really looked at that and understand what that means? I know we don't want to eat it.
Just for clarifications, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency rules say that if you dredge it, if you remove it from the site, you have to handle it in a certain way and take it to a certain landfill. Those regulations allow that material to stay.
Right.
So it's not contaminated as much as it is. The silt has certain characteristics that would require special handling under state laws. That's the concept.
Yeah, I think that's worth clarifying. I think last time we discussed this, we tried to make clear that leaving it in place is perfectly fine, but once you take it out, for example, if you dig a foundation for a house, the dirt's fine the way it is, but once you dig it up, because of the rules these days, you have to dispose of it in a certain way. That doesn't mean it's contaminated or dangerous. It just means you have to handle it a certain way, and there's a cost associated with that. If you leave it alone, don't dredge it. It's not going to rise up at night and creep into your backyard.
And because it's below the water, albeit 1 or 2 inches in some spots, I'm assuming it's a little more contained, a little less harmful. But
no one's suggesting that it's harmful.
What we're suggesting is that it's compliant with Illinois law.
Yes.
But when that same stuff builds up over a year or two and now is on the top of whatever we put in there, which is different than being under the water and not being available airborne or whatever. I just want to make sure, because that stuff is still going to be the same stuff that's there now.
Okay.
And it's going to keep coming, and it's going to come from a wider area, all right?
Dave, is Nan here?
Yes.
Would it be possible to have her give us in 5 minutes or less kind of an explanation as to how this is going to function? Rising, lowering, having contaminants, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's some misinformation out there, and if
Just real quick, I think I can provide a brief overview.
Okay.
Part of the naturalization is the creation or the recreation of the naturally occurring stream system. We would do that by lowering the pipe on the outfall end. What that means is there'd still be water flowing through it, and there would be no loss of energy or less loss of energy with less silt accumulating if it were to be naturalized. So it would change the situation and would result in less silt accumulating.
Okay, so there's if I read this right when I read there's a filtering system that's in place which would actually cleanse the water.
That's correct.
So with the rise and fall with rains, there will not be contaminants that attach onto natural plants.
Where will they go?
You know,
Well, no, that's why I'm just trying to get an explanation.
we is pretty loosely being tossed around here. We is not myself and Marilyn and Dave. We is the Environmental Protection Association, the Illinois Environmental Protection Association, American Water Works Association. Best practices over about the last, well, this village, which is not always in front, surprisingly, adopted this policy in 1995. So we, you know, do we know exactly where a current contaminant might float to? Probably not. We probably do not. Do we think that this is going to solve the bags from the shopping area in there? Probably not. But we is not just this group. What we're trying to do as a village, hopefully, in everything from electric aggregation to stormwater control, to trash pickup, to green energy in our buildings, is take what we think are best practices from the environment around us, from the country, from lots of people who do spend a lot of time studying these, and put them in play. You know, that policy that was noted before was picked up in 1995 by this council. I think that's one person up here as part of that group. And what it says is, frankly, that we're going to naturalize stuff. It doesn't say we're going to maintain lakes. It says we're going to preserve wetlands and natural stream configurations, which is exactly what we're trying to accomplish here, in order to utilize the inherent water quality cleansing, action, and flood control protection and protect wildlife. That's exactly what's going on here. So is it we deciding today that we think Roby Pond is best by some new idea? Not so much. It's trying to stick with a policy and best practices that go way beyond the village of Downers Grove. So I'm sure there's some answers to those questions, and we could probably come up with a string of 400 more questions if we got everybody up here to list their 10 favorite questions. We are not going to necessarily know all the answers to those this moment, but this is not a new idea. And I know that, I understand that you guys want a pond, and I'm not necessarily just like the mayor saying we're not going to have a pond. But we can throw out idea after idea and question after question about purple martins and mosquitoes and trash bags for the next 60 days or the next 60 years. We know that whether it's 6 years, 16, or 30, it's going to silt again. And so how best should we maintain the stormwater treatment and handling qualities of that stream right now? That's the question.
Well, the question is, Commissioner, would you want to live within 6 feet of a pond that spawned mosquitoes bigger than hummingbirds, and watch the plastic trash bags fly through the air and get stuck on a cattail and not be able to get it out? And you know, would that be acceptable to you?
You have to ask the people in Orchard Brook and the people up on 39th Street and the other people across the country and across the county who are living in these environments.
The Orchard Brook, if I recall, when I visited the Orchard Brook environment, it wasn't backed up to someone's 5 feet from someone's backyard. Is that true? I mean, that's what I saw. I saw it was across the street from houses.
No, you're
I
right.
didn't see it was backed up to someone's backyard. From you to me away. I mean, that is different. That is different.
Anyway, I don't think we're trying not to debate and argue here, but to answer questions and hear reviews, including on some of the options. I would like to hear some, and if the answer is we're not interested in any of the options.
And nobody's saying that.
I haven't heard anything one way or
Everybody
the
else
other.
up here is saying we're interested in hearing about how we might work a pond out.
Well, I'm interested in knowing when the muck that's at the bottom of the pond now, dead leaves and runoffs from the streets, that is not healthy because you have to take it, if you get rid of it, you have to specially handle it and take it somewhere. Right. I'm asking the question is someone going to guarantee me that that's not going to be the same as it is today and it's not going to be a health issue? Right. Well, and I don't hear that.
There are two questions there, and those are fair questions. To pick up on Commissioner Schnell's point, maybe not right now, but at some point, maybe we can give everybody a better idea of what the naturalization process would involve and would it be, would it stir up more stuff or less stuff than dredging? Because I think the dredging option obviously is going to stir up a lot of stuff that right now is sitting in place. My understanding is there's nothing about health that's anywhere remotely involved in this. It's just, and there's a lot of things in nature that are perfectly normal and natural that you are not supposed to eat. Berries, bark, twigs, there's rocks, there's lots of things you're not supposed to eat. They're perfectly fine as they sit there. So let's be very clear about this. There's not some kind of nuclear waste dump in the back of your yard, not that I'm aware of, and I'm also not, maybe that explains the mosquitoes the size of hummingbirds, I don't know. I'm exaggerating to make a point, but let's not, let's be clear about this, is the dredging is gonna take up all that stuff, and you just can't put it in your backyard, you have to put it somewhere. It doesn't mean it's unhealthy. But I guarantee you, whether it stays there, or whether it's 20 years ago, you wouldn't want to eat what's at the bottom of the pond in any event.
Just to get back to Commissioner Schnell's question, what we'd like to do is, we'll provide a quick summary on the website that explains sort of the differences between how the pond functions and how.
I think I think everybody wants to understand what's physically going to happen in that naturalization. That's a fair question, and I think even we would like to obviously hear more about that. We know what happens in dredging. There's big scoops and they take it out.
But I think there's some misinformation or misunderstanding of what's been said, or...
Clearly.
Well, yeah, but the more, and I've said this on many different occasions, the more information we can get out there so people understand actually what's being proposed, I think the better off it is, so that there are not questions about, 12-headed mosquitoes that are going to come in the night, I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm a firm believer in education and having people understand what is actually being proposed. And it doesn't have to be, a 25-page document, but something that is clearly understood by those of us who are not engineers, I think would be beneficial.
We'll post that.
Yes, and I understood your two questions mainly to be, sir, number one, can we get a better handle on what the cost of dredging would be? I got that. And the other one would be, what exactly are the physical mechanisms involved in the naturalization process, and how would that physically alter what is currently now a pond? Those are fair questions, and we'll get more information on that.
And that is my main concern about the naturalization is the junk that's in there now that can't go to a landfill, we're just going to let it lay on top, and that's my concern.
No, I understood your question.
And it's a valid concern.
Understood your question. We'll get some more information on that. Thank you. Now, Commissioner.
Can I we've only heard from a few people, and I know we'll hear from more, but I'm wondering, it seems that people want to hear what that cost is, and they're not willing to sign up for an SSA, not knowing if it's $500,000, like this gentleman said, or if it's $900,000. Just thought I would point that out. I don't know if we can go to bid. I know it's an extensive process, but I think that's where it seems like the hesitation is, because they don't understand what they're committing to. It's quite a
couple of things to that point. One is we prepared a cost estimate, and we went about it by getting input from I think 3 consultants to make sure that we had as detailed and as accurate cost estimate as we can. We stand behind that cost estimate. Is it right on? We can never guarantee that. So we had 2 options that we started talking about 2 weeks ago, and we explored on the website. Option 1 was to go all the way to a call for bids, actually bid the project. And our thoughts there are, 1, it takes quite a bit of work to actually prepare the call for bids. And 2, staff does not recommend publishing a call for bids if we do not intend to construct the project, because the bid results tend to reflect the fact that, the responders know you don't intend to construct it, or there might be a risk of not constructing it, and so the prices are probably higher. So the other option we had thrown out there is we can pay for another consultant who specializes in cost estimating, which is about $5,000, and they could turn that around in several weeks and get us yet another opinion on the estimated cost. And it would be, they could provide whatever detail the council or the residents would like to see. So those are our thoughts that we capture on the website.
Thank you for that. Let me just follow up on that, because I think one of the other, obviously what I'm hearing is there is a lack of being convinced that the estimate is a solid estimate, and thus the desire to have a bid or some other process that would provide greater confidence to the neighbors that the 900,000 or it's 800,000, whatever it is a pretty solid number. One way to go about getting that number would be to bid it out, but that has its own problems. And especially if you're bidding it out just to kind of see what it would cost, you're right. You might not get enough bidders. You might get not very serious numbers, because we would perceive as not necessarily serious about doing it because we haven't made a decision. It's a little bit of a chicken and the egg problem. But if there is a another way to revisit the numbers, but maybe even, explain how those numbers are derived in a fashion that more of us in this room would have a greater degree of confidence that they are in fact solid numbers, that might be something worth exploring. At least I'm just speaking from my own standpoint. If we're talking about $5,000, we'll just deduct it from the $500,000. That might be, I'm kidding, that might be something that could be, I'll consider it. I'm just talking out loud.
We did that under question number 7.
I know.
Well, but my concern is that we may.
I don't know if there's a confidence level in getting to that number. So maybe it's explaining how the number was
my
derived.
confidence level is high. And, if we're going to be the ones that are going to eventually make this policy decision, we either have to say right now, let's give thumbs up or down to tell staff, direct staff to either go out and get a dredging bid or spend the $5,000 to get the bids. I mean, if we don't have the confidence in the numbers that we have here as a council, we need to direct our staff to do that. I think before we get to that point, we need to decide if we're going to naturalize or if we're going to let these other 2 options be on the table. That's my preference.
I'm not suggesting, one second, I'm sorry. I'm not suggesting that I'm talking about a shared level of confidence.
Okay.
The public having a level of confidence. And I don't know if, maybe it's not spending another $5,000. Maybe it's spending the time to make sure that people understand how the one we have was arrived at and that it is pretty solid. It's not just whimsy.
Please don't exclude our solution as well.
No.
Mike,
That's already in the hopper.
you do.
Yes.
My concern is that even if we spend the $5,000, my understanding is they have a number that they got that they think is the right number. And even if we spend the $5,000, I think there's going to be, distrust is not the right word. There's going to be a certain amount of distrust in those figures in that they were either manipulated or played with or whatever to show be 758, 859, whatever the number may come back to. And that's a concern because obviously we're spending more of the taxpayers' money. I'm not discounting what the individual told you. There's lots of things that go into these numbers. And maybe if we can get a better explanation of how, what the 3 consultants were, what they looked at, their insurance requirements. We have all sorts of things that go into these kinds of documents that, someone may or may not know. So if you could provide that information to us, I think, and obviously on the question and answers on the webpage, that may be beneficial to the residents too, to have a clear understanding of how these numbers were derived.
We can put that information together. We had a brief summary of it in the questions. We can provide whatever backup information we have.
More detail.
More detail. It just, as a side note, it is interesting that before the law change about how we have to handle this material, our cost estimate almost matched the gentleman's number he threw out almost to the penny. So I have a feeling there may be some work in that area that would explain the cost difference. Because remember, we budgeted almost that exact number in 2010. Then a change in how we had to handle the silt and then the new cost estimate.
Well, and maybe like you indicated that you're going to have you were going to forward that information, maybe just a conversation would clear up any.
Absolutely. But we'll do both. We'll have the conversation and we'll post more detail, whatever backup information we have on the website.
And we have a couple of weeks in here before we ever meet again anyway, so to get that information, it would be beneficial.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so maybe we don't need to hire anybody, just get a higher level of confidence.
Right. Well, I think our residents need to have a higher level of confidence too. And I think that's where we need to put our efforts, is that the residents understand how we got the numbers and how, whether or not your number is right or not, I don't know, but somehow get information to them and to us as to.
Well, yes, and we'll obviously look at the, whatever we get from AQS Services, that if it turns out that they didn't properly address the disposition of the sledge, and we'll find out.
There's AQS right there.
All right, hold on, sir. Sir, can't hear you way back there. There's a gentleman who's been very patiently waiting right here.
Yes, okay. A couple of questions. First of all, how many of the council people have actually walked around the pond?
Ever?
One.
Ever? Yes.
Yeah.
Huh?
Ever? Yes.
No, lately. Yeah, it doesn't show very much that you really have an interest in this. You keep talking about how, it's a private pond. It is not. There's parking, there's plenty of parking, because there's a soccer field, there's a Frisbee golf field, there's a kid's
Right.
playground,
Slide.
and you're talking about, right now here, you guys recognize this pamphlet you put out? Right here, the second point, clear brush and dense weeds from around the property. This deprives rodents, and rodent shelter, and reduces protective cover for coyotes. So basically, you're going to turn this into a feeding ground for coyotes right next to a kid's playground where people are going to play. This naturalization part will not work. Okay, also, on this question and answer thing, you got a whole list and how much money it cost. Came down to $129,000. It said here, village dredged the east side of the pond, $39,000. That's because the pipe collapsed. And they didn't dredge, all they did is scoop out the broken pipe. So that's money that should not be included in this. And the rest of it is all a waste of money that since the time they did this, they started it, we said this needed attention, needed to be dredged, and it fell on deaf ears. Well, now it's time to pay the piper. And you guys have to come up with the money to do this. And to offer and say that we have to pay for your mistakes, that's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I just want one question to ask.
Please, can you give us your name and address?
My name is David Wilson, and I live at 1031
Thank you.
Roby, right on the east end of the pond. The biggest thing that I ever saw while I've lived there, as far as filling up the pond, is when they built that subdivision straight south of us. I even had a oil spill at the time into the pond. I think, I wondered, has anyone looked at what flows in there now? I mean, the percent of, you know, when we have a rainstorm or whatever, how much sediment actually comes in at each time? I mean, I think a great deal of the fill was at that very time, because I saw a huge difference in how the depth of the pond at that point. And that's basically what I wanted to ask.
Thank you. We can take a look at that. I understood your question. I have to keep saying that because I obviously didn't understand the first question that was asked, so I have to make sure everybody knows I understand the subsequent questions. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Pardon me?
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jan Sinek. I live right on the pond at 6910 Roby Avenue. We bought there because of the pond and of Downers Grove, and proud to be there. I just have a few questions, and I really just want to comment. I think what Roger Janjorek brought up tonight was very, very enlightening. I live next door to him. I didn't even know he was going to say that tonight. But the information about that we really can't take this over and maintain it, I don't think we legally can do that. And I think we are now preparing to meet as a group, and I think we will seek our legal options to whatever the right answers will be. And also, that would probably eliminate option 3, so that leaves option 1 and 2, which, you know, we're not real in favor of the naturalization. But I have talked to other people that have dredged ponds and lakes, and other options have been done, and I just want to throw it out there. I'm not an engineer. I don't even know if it's a viable process. But you can drain the pond by pumps, leave all that dirt there, and in this kind of heat and in the summertime, it will dry and it'll be perfectly safe to deposit someplace else. It doesn't have to be hauled away at whatever you quoted us so much cubic yard, because it will be environmentally safe. There's someone doing this up there on Lake Marie, up on McHenry County right now as I speak. And also Lake Delavan was done this way. It was drained and most of it was dried and then hauled away. You save your EPA and all that environmental stuff that's bad for the... Also, another thing is draining the whole thing, sodding it all in and putting underground sewers in there and have it just become a grassed in sod area. I've seen that with detention ponds. So I'm just saying, are these viable options? I don't think we've run out of viable options, and I think we should keep our minds open to all these two other suggestions. And I don't have the answers, but I'm throwing it out there. You were looking for other options, and I'm throwing it out there.
Well, thank you. Because we are, and that's why we're having a workshop. Thank you, ma'am. Others who'd like to speak on this topic? Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, Rose Toast, 7,000 Foster, at the very far end of the pond, lake, retention area, whatever you want to call it. I have notes all over the place, so I'm probably skipping around a lot, but you have to bear with me. You know, I went through this timeline of what you've printed, and again, you know, we're talking a period of 40 years. And during those 40 years, if you look back at what Downers looked like on the south side, there was nothing there. We've had all this growth, all the buildings going up, all that dirt, all the sediment, all the silt came from those new homes. All the new properties that went in were developed. That's not going to exist anymore. So the fact that it's taken this long to fill in that much silt is not going to continue at that rate. Furthermore, the riprap went in. Again, a large amount of that silt sediment came in from, excuse me, came in from that surrounding perimeter. If the riprap is maintained, you're not going to have that either. I ask, what exactly, in 2011, when you requested the dredging, did you actually go to the consultants and say, what's your cost of dredging? Did you ask for any other options? Same thing with the naturalization. Did you ask for other options, or did you just say, give me an estimate on it?
Well, now I get to correct what I misstated earlier. With respect to how the estimate was developed, as Commissioner Newstead had pointed out, item 7, materials you're looking at, explains it. It could probably use to be explained in some more detail how those numbers arrived at, but it explains what the consultants were asked in coming up with the estimate.
But they were asked specifically for dredging.
Correct. Then the naturalization was what I was erroneously referring to earlier in response to the other gentleman's comment. That was sent out to bid.
Okay.
So we had 2 bids.
Okay.
For the naturalization.
But
So
my
that wasn't,
question-
those aren't estimates, those are solid bids.
My question, I guess, really comes down to, did you go to consultants and say, what are our options to eliminate the problems of this pond? Or were they allowed to come up with alternatives, or were they specifically given a directive that this is what we're looking for, give it to us? Because that happens a lot.
Yeah, the history was first, dredging obviously is an option, and that was looked at, and a number was come up with, as is described in item 7 on what's on the website in terms of how that estimate was come up with. That was deemed to be a very large number. It's almost $1 million. So an alternative was looked at as, well, what's a better practice? And it's not just cost. I mean, I don't want to lose track of that. As Commissioner Barnett said, there are other issues involved here besides just cost. There's best practices. So
I understand.
It might be cheaper, but that doesn't mean it's the best practice. So dredging is also not the best practice. Let's keep that in mind. So there was a combination of that, both cost and what best practices are, looked at naturalization. And that was put out to bid, so we actually had 2 responses, 2 bids for the cost of naturalization. I don't know if that answers your question.
And just to clarify, when we start a project like this, and this has its origins now back 4 or 5 years ago, we did start with a blank slate. What are all the options available to us to address the problem? The problem is the silting in. And so options from hydraulic dredging, dried on-site, dried off-site were explored. Traditional mechanical dredging with various options were explored. Naturalization was explored. And it's important to note that every time we went to one of these consultants, we presented them with, first and foremost, an open-ended, results-oriented discussion. Help us. You have the expertise. What are the options? And after a series of years, we narrowed down to what we thought was the most cost-effective, environmentally sustainable, which is naturalization. But I want to assure everybody that we don't sit in the staff room and say, let's get a number on this. We have a very much a results-oriented dialogue with many, many options on the table before they come to the council.
Okay, I guess that's not what was really on that timeline, because it specifically says asked for a report, a concept report on dredging or the naturalization, so I guess I was not quite on the same page with that. when we talk about the rise of the water, number 4 of your answers, there's a difference of 8 feet of water rise. Now, many of us who live there know that during heavy rains, we get way more than 8 feet of water. And it takes more than a day or 2 for that water to subside completely. These naturalized plants that are going to be there will not survive more than 3 days underwater. So when those plants are all dead and the water's gone, I think your costs are maybe a little underestimated with all the replacement from those plants. Not to mention, again, another year to 2 to 3 to get it to a proper growth that's actually going to look like anything other than little weeds. Number 5, where you talk about the lowering of the outlet, how much are we lowering that outlet? Because it says minimal, but minimal to me and minimal to someone else might be significantly different.
Lowering the outlet by about a foot and the impact on the normal water and high water level are described in that fashion. That's where we got the estimates for the impact. But it's lowered about a foot. And it's important to understand that this is a design-build contract. So if you're looking for the details of the resulting design, it has not yet been designed. So that would happen if the council authorized us to enter into the contract. We would have a series of neighborhood meetings. We would take more input, and we would have very specific answers to design impacts once that occurred.
Okay. So if it lowers approximately a foot, based on whatever design is configured, is all of that area below the level that it's at now, where it's going to drop a foot? What is that? Is it just going to be filled in with dirt? I'm not sure.
I think the best way to handle this is in the synopsis that Commissioner Schnell asked for. We'll put that information in there. We try to capture it that it would be lowering and create more storage. That's the general answer. We can get more detailed. I think it's just a better venue to post it on the website and give them the detail they're looking for.
Okay.
And you talked about this, I think it was NCAP. What is that?
It's a company.
That's the
So
contract.
it's a company that you've already selected to do the work?
No.
That's already submitted a bid?
Yes.
That's good for 30 days. Are they the only one that submitted a bid?
No.
No.
What other bids have you gotten?
There was also a higher bid from V3 Construction.
What was it?
There was a higher bid from a company called V3 Construction Group Limited, $612,000.
Any idea why you only got 2 bids?
Yes, this is a complicated project. There are very few firms that do design build involving naturalization and handling of these types of materials. So it's not surprising you only get a handful of firms.
How are those firms notified? I'm just asking for that process. Do they know all of a sudden it's out there, or do you actually send it to people?
We send it to firms that we're aware have this qualification, and we post it publicly to make sure that if there's any firms we're not aware of, they have access to the public documents as well.
Okay.
He's on a roll, so I'm just letting him go.
No, that's fine, because I was curious on that one, because, no, I won't go there. Okay, a couple other points here I just want to go through. The other question, I guess, and personally, I feel this decision is made. You guys have decided what you're going to do. That's my opinion. I don't like it. No, none of us like it, but I believe that's what you've already determined that's going to happen. So if that's the case, I believe another company who maybe has a little more knowledge of the plants and a design be contacted. There's ways to create different berms, different logs to put in place, different plants to put there, so that you're not completely drying up an area to put wetland plants. The water can be moved throughout. It doesn't have to just be a straight shot on the north side. What happens when we do get a heavy rainfall and that some type of wall that's there on the south side of this flow is going to overflow. All the silt, all the sediment is going to come right back into it. And like it was mentioned, then what happens? It's just going to pile up on the dirt, onto the weeds, time after time. So if you're going to talk about sustainability, how long is that going to last? Just questions I have. stuff to think about, I guess. And again, I think you guys have a really tough decision to make, and it is not, as stated before, a private pond. You own it, it's public. You don't like to own it, you want us to have it, that's one thing, but you own it, it's public. There are access points on both the north and the south side of the pond that was, I believe, designed for Village to get their equipment in there to maintain it. It's never used, but there is access there for public access. So it's not at all private.
Can I just ask a question? Is
Yes.
that, I drove around there, so I didn't see that. Is there a sign that says?
There's no
"Public
sign.
welcome"?
There's no sign, but you can, you
It's right
can,
on my property, on my plot of survey.
No, I don't have a copy of your plot of survey, I apologize.
You
I mean,
can
you
clearly
asked a
see-
specific question, have I walked the pond? The answer
You
is
can
no.
clearly
Did I drive around
see-
the pond? Yes.
you can clearly see between two houses on both the north and the south side of it, a much larger area to access the pond. It is
I thought
not
that
the
was private
normal
property, so I didn't walk.
10 feet in between or whatever.
East End has another one, where the big pipe's coming into the inlet. There's a huge area you can get in there.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if
Thank
we
you, ma'am.
traipse over your property, no one's going to yell at us.
Well, it's not our property, it's yours.
Well, we might assume it's
We
public,
assumed it
but
was your
it's
property.
the wrong
so-
side.
Mayor and council, I just wanted to add to a very important question that this resident asked about how we go about selecting firms, because that's very important to us. I just wanted to note that we did actually post a request for qualifications for looking for firms who are qualified in this unique area of work, and we got 10 responders. And then we pre-qualified through an interview and selection process, and we identified 5 firms that were qualified. And then we sent the request for proposal to those 5 firms and then got 2 of them to respond. So that is the process we used to clearly vet to make sure we reached far and wide to get the firms that were qualified for this kind of work.
Do you think
Similar
two,
process.
do you
I'm sorry.
think 2 responses is really adequate to make this kind of a decision?
It's sometimes just the way it goes.
Oh, that's not an answer at all.
Well, except that it's reality. I'm looking right now, for example, on a site here, because this is part of what some folks do for a living. And these are all public bid notices. And so there are at least 3 that I'm aware of sites. You may know them too, Dodge Reports, Reed Connect, and I can't remember the other one, CMD, I think. And so, for instance, right now I can sit here and look, as do the contractors, because it's part of what they do, at all the options that are out there for bid, all the offerings that are out there. The process of publicizing these is, it's kind of what the mayor was trying to get on earlier about how we'd have to stick with a process. It's really well defined and goes way beyond this project. But there are times when we receive 1 bid. There are times we receive, like on Grove Street, 5 bids, only 1 of them complete. There are times we receive 2 bids. There are other times we receive 9. It depends a lot on the definition of what's going on in the scope. But the process by which we go through to advertise that it is in fact an available bid is really consistent, really constant, really public. It's not like, there's some things being said specifically, like the decision's already made, that are not accurate, and there's some things being kind of insinuated, which is, how come we only got 2 bids? It doesn't seem right. Tell me more about the process. The process is the same and repetitive and very purposefully really, really out there and really, really public. And that's, the responses are, in fact, all over the map sometimes. Doesn't mean that it's what we all wish. We'd love to have 6 bids, because frankly, that's more likely to result in a lower bid.
Don't you have a deadline on your bids?
Yeah.
As to when-
Yeah, there's
So
always
if
a-
you
there's
only
always a
have
bid.
2, couldn't you extend a deadline and throw it out there again?
You can, sure, but the point is that's not an uncommon occurrence, that we don't get a big, long string of bids. It just depends on the project scope.
If you haven't already prepared the scope of services, the scope of what work needs to be done, how did you get an estimate of what it will cost?
It's design build.
It's the whole concept of design build, and we're actually getting into, these are processes that are not unique to this project. We do these with fire stations, we do these with
Well, I realize
parking
that, but
deck.
it's unique to everybody here.
I understand that, but I'm saying this is not something we just put together for this project. There's a process that is followed, and the design bid process, the village manager can go into in great detail. But I think if the question is, is your question really, are you really questioning the amount of the bid on the naturalization?
The dollar
I
amount?
don't think that's really what you're challenging.
I'm questioning a lot of stuff.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
we're spending a lot of time talking about the dollar amount of the naturalization bid, and I really don't think that's where your concern lies. I think where your concern lies, from what I'm hearing, is not that it was overbid or underbid or something like that, or that the people who bid weren't qualified on the naturalization bid. I think you have a lot of legitimate questions on what goes into the naturalization process, and we understand that from the comments that you've made and others, and we'll attempt to provide more information as to what would it actually look like when it's done. Because it is a design, in other words, part of what they're bidding on is the cost of designing it properly for this environment. To meet criteria, to meet
But
regulations,
is
to
it
meet the
somewhat
law.
of the catch-22? You can't give us specifics on the design until you commit to the design, but yet we don't know what it's going to look like, so we're all in limbo and we have to just rely on...
No, you don't have to rely upon anything because you'll be part of the design process.
The design-build process is used when there are unique circumstances relating to a lot of permit-type activity. It's very common to use design-build in these types of riparian or water environments. Many regulatory agencies will have a say in how this is designed, and so what happens is, instead of preparing a set of engineering plans to bid on up front, the reason we don't do it that way is because that would be before permitting, and then those plans would change during the permitting process.
Well, not only
so
that.
it's more economical and frankly a better process to involve the neighbors is to get them to help design it in accordance with the permitting processes that go concurrently.
Yes, and the ability to actually have input into what that design is. Because to the extent that there are permitted choices and discretion, the neighborhood can have input into that. That's the other reason why the design hasn't happened yet. If the design was done, then that would be it. But there's two other things to keep in mind there. It's design and build. The first thing is to design it. It has to be, everyone has to be okay with the design, and then you build it.
Everyone has to be okay with the design?
Well, we're not putting it out
I
there.
heard that, though. You
We're not
said
putting it out there to
everyone.
vote.
Just making sure. I mean, I guess that's it. I had a lot of issues with the questions, with the answers. I'm not really content with them all. One other thing that came up, though, on the very east end, at one point, I thought I saw, I don't know, maybe it was in records way beyond, I thought at the very east end there was, or intended to be, some type of a basin. So when you had this influx of water drainage, sewage, whatever, with a deep basin, much of that sediment and silt will fall to the base of the basin. And therefore, the cleaner water, such as a filter, it's going to overflow into the clearer parts of the pond and can be manipulated throughout so the water flows. So is that not an option, to have a large basin to catch much of this silt?
Under response number 3, are there options between dredging and naturalizing? Staff sketched up an option that would be an area of a wetland island or naturalized, surrounded by an open water feature, and that is where we described upstream sediment control through debris collection, building those desiltation basins.
So there will be a basin, is that what you're saying?
Only if the other option is selected, which is the item described in question number 3.
Which was like a $700,000.
Which was the hybrid option that's between $700,000 and $800,000.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you for your questions, thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments on this item?
Scott Reichel, I live at 1150 Valley View. Thank you for your patience. Good evening. If you own your home, you are naturally concerned about the value of your property. Having asked somebody, a professional who I've dealt with, both on my property and others, getting their opinion about what would happen to that value, independent of the assessment office, it's not good. So what I'd like to know is what effort has the village put into determining what would happen to the value of our property under the naturalization from somebody independent of the city, just like you get, you talk to independent consultants or, who knowledgeable on EPA and USDA and all those regulations. So have you done that, and what would be the impact to us? And assuming that there is going to be an impact, has the village considered relief for us? Because, I don't anticipate, if you choose the naturalization and my property value goes down in the marketplace, I don't get a warm feeling that my property taxes will go down.
Well, actually, the assessment we don't control. We control our property tax levy across the entire village.
I guess I'm just asking, has the village looked at that? Because if the property value was to go down and people were to fight their taxes, right? I mean, that naturally happens through the course of business. Has the village considered, if that happens, if the property values do go down and citizens have a justifiable cause to go to the county or then to the state if it's rejected, to fight their taxes, have they considered what happens if the citizens were to win? Because that would naturally narrow the gap between.
Well, I understand. Saying if we take into account hypothetical loss in real estate property tax revenue.
Not a hypothetical. Have you explored whether somebody?
Well, it's hypothetical because we don't know what it is.
Well,
by definition, it's hypothetical.
Just to jump in, since we work on a levy system, not a rate system, whatever the village levies we receive, it just depends on how it's spread out. And any risk of non-payment rests with the county who collects it. So we get what we levy. So there's no risk of the village receiving fewer dollars than we levy because of changes in up or down in the property values. To get more specific, did we look at the impact on property values if this were naturalized? I do not believe that we did that analysis. No, we did not.
I mean, it's a natural concern. And I am somebody who would be open to an SSA. I just want to say that on the record. I understand the village's constraints. And I think everybody here, once the emotions pass, and we thank you for I thank you for your patience. I would want to explore some of them, particularly if this was to be naturalized. Things come with the water other than silt, right? I can't tell you how many Jimmy John's cups, caps, bottles, plastic bags, straws, everything else that I pick up from my backyard. And I do it now because I care about my property, how it looks, where my kids play. I'd love to have confidence in the city to do it, right? But I haven't seen anybody out there, and I think that's some of the concern that people have, is that those types of things naturally come with the water, some things other than silt. And so if it was to be naturalized, what kind of extra guarantees would the city provide to say people are going to walk through once a month, clean up? It becomes, what other things could you do? Something to consider. I'm not saying you have to answer now. To guarantee that it's clean, that it looks nice, and that the aesthetics, which I think is what a lot of what people are so emotional about, right? Things look nice. It's very peaceful in the backyard. I thank you for that fountain because we love it. And I think all the kids who walk to school and the cross-country kids and, the people who use the property for other reasons, what can you do to maintain some of the aesthetics for the homeowners, for the people who live in the area, so that it still looks nice and that, it really doesn't become, frankly, like some of the pictures you have on the website. I mean, it doesn't always look very nice. I mean, this is literally not even a stone's throw from our property. So we see it when we're sitting on our couch. We can see the property.
The current naturalization program has a $5,000 to $10,000 maintenance component to it. Can we add that to some of the more specific details of what that $5,000 to $10,000 would do to maintain this area throughout the course of a year?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Any other questions or comments from the audience with respect to this item? Any additional questions or comments from any members of the village council? Commissioner Schnell?
I actually have a question of staff. Once you put the additional information on the webpage, how, if the residents want to have a 60-day period to kind of pursue other things, how do they go about doing that?
Well, I would look for some direction from the council here tonight. It sounds to me like there's a lot of questions that the residents still have. So we could use a 60-day period to do a couple of things. Answer any and every question they have for us. We'll do our best to do that. And talk to them in more detail about these options. So we could do both concurrently if that were the direction. So frankly, we just look for what the council would like us to do, and then we'll work up a process for that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just from my perspective, I think that additional information, I need some additional information, but obviously it's their homes, and they need additional information just to either feel that naturalization isn't as bad as I think it's going to be, or it's something that they just don't want to pursue and they actually want to pursue something else. And I think if we indeed provide additional information as to how we came up with the estimate on the dredging, and if we get the information that they have, and we can somehow either say, gee, this guy is really low and he's doing everything, or he missed X, Y, and Z, and therefore it would mean $899,000, whatever the number is. We need to provide that additional information to the residents and to us so that they can then decide where they want to go. So from my perspective, if it takes 60 days and you are willing to provide a staff member or two to facilitate that, I think it's time well spent, because it'll allow everyone, ourselves included, to feel more confident in where we're going. So.
Well, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, that's just one person. You've got 6 others.
I meant maybe one staff member.
Okay, one staff member. That's 2.
I agree with Commissioner Schnell, but I think we've got 3 weeks until our next meeting anyway. So I guess it will lean to you to see if there's enough time between now and then to get some of the council questions answered that we had tonight, to then make that next step of if we want to look at the options offered to the residents and the neighbors about those SSAs and other things like that.
We can respond to the questions that were asked here clearly within that, I think it's about a 3-week period before our next meeting, 2 Tuesdays off. And if you'd like, we can put it either back on first reading for further discussion, or we could put it back, we could put it on an active agenda, and you could direct us from that point.
On that, I know others want to weigh in here. We can certainly decide whether to put it on active or not, but I think we'll have enough, we'll know more than we know today in the next couple of weeks. And I think that will guide the decision as to when it comes back, in what form it comes back, is my take. We'll probably have better information 2 weeks from now as to whether we have something to continue to discuss and refine, or whether we don't. But one second, sir. I know Commissioner Barnett's been waiting patiently, unless you want to yield the floor to the gentleman who just walked up.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Dave,
if you could just introduce yourself, please.
Yes, Dave Young, 1111 Roby. I have one question, and that is, and I also would be entertain possibly an SSA, but not an open-ended one. What would it cost us? And before we can possibly say yes or no, we have to know. And so far, we don't have that.
Of course, and just to be absolutely clear about it, the SSA is not going to happen unless the neighborhood wants it. So you will know what it is.
Okay, but we can't say
before anything happens.
We can't say that we want it until we know how much it is.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood. And that's why we wanted to talk more about different flavors of what that might be, what it might involve, because there certainly are levels of what that could be. No question about it. We understand that very clearly. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Burnett?
Didn't we have some approximate magnitudes on those already?
Yes.
Okay. What I was going to say is we're still, I said this last time, and it remains true today, we're still working through a process, and there's a whole bunch of questions that our staff is going to help get answers to, and this body is still trying to think through the various choices too. What would help, I think, from a community standpoint, of the sort of 3 groups in here, if you will, of making progress and communicating and dialogue and actually getting some answer, is if 2 things I guess I'd ask everybody to do, my colleagues and also the residents in the neighborhood. When we get sort of Commissioner Schnell's, I don't know, Dave had a better description of it, but better description, more detailed description of what naturalization means and how it works. One is spend a bunch of time with it. Look at it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 5 times on our website, and develop your questions and go ahead and shoot them in so we can sort of keep a dialogue going. And secondly, start thinking through personally, those numbers on SSA, they're not $12.63, but there are some kind of, I think there were basically 2 or 3 sort of levels of magnitude. And so that information's out there. So start thinking through, personally in your household too, whether that's something you even want to entertain. It may not be, or maybe it is, but as the mayor said, in order for that to happen, it's got to be a whole neighborhood that does it. And so when we reconvene as a group here, all of us in this room, and talk some more about what happens next, if that's something that's not at all part of the conversation, we should know that then. and not be talking about it. Right now, there's a lot of, well, what, would this happen, would it not happen? It may be that all of the neighbors in the area look at the actual sort of magnitude and decide for themselves, that's not something we can participate in, even if we wanted to. That's a possibility. So I just ask that everybody kind of continue to work on your end as well. I think we all know what your preference is, which is to have that pond restored to what it was 25 years ago tomorrow. I don't know if that's one of the choices we're going to land at, but for the discussion to really continue forward, I think it's going to take both of us continuing to work, not just staff answering some questions that were brought tonight. So please work on that, Phil.
If we can do it here, and maybe while the gentleman's speaking here, paragraph 15 in the information on their website, sir, has some, as Commissioner Barnett mentioned, different scenarios and some dollars associated with it. I don't know if you've seen that. It's not down to the nitty-gritty, but if you've seen it, then I won't bother having Mr. Baker put it up.
It's here.
Okay, then never mind. But I just want to make sure you were at least aware of that. But that's at least a rough postulation, if you will, of what it would look like. But the details would certainly have to be worked out before anything was implemented. Yes, sir.
And I think just the question we would have is when or who would determine who participates? Because that's a key driver of the numbers for the people in the group. I mean, the fewer the participants, the higher the cost. Might change some opinions. So
right. Well, that again is probably driven by the neighborhood.
So it's not the council or it's not the village that would make that decision?
It is the village council that would make that decision.
Ultimately.
And there's an objection period.
Well, we can't compel one person to participate in the SSA, is what I mean.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, realistically.
Well,
So what I'd like to do is, because SSAs can get pretty complicated
Yes.
pretty quickly, is during that 60-day period, we would like the opportunity to educate everybody on what an SSA would actually look like, what their payments would be on their own property, the process for creating one, those types of things.
Short way of saying this. Can the village put an SSA into place even if everybody is against it? Yes. Are we going to do that? No.
That clarifies it.
What we would like to do is, if there's interest in an SSA, is work with the neighborhood to come up with one. And again, I realize not everybody's going to agree with everything. They never do. I don't think there's a single thing we ever do up here that everybody in town agrees with. But we'd like to work with the neighborhood and come up with one that is best suited to the solution that we're trying to achieve. If that makes it less complicated.
And we could go to that 60-day period and the neighbors could meet and find out more information, and they could come at the end of the 60 days and say, we are not interested in an SSA. There's no commitment by just talking about it. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
And again, what you're going to hear from Mr. Fieldman with some of this additional information about SSAs is the example I gave earlier tonight. I know it seemed like it was yesterday, but earlier tonight about a neighborhood where a street was being reconstructed, and the question was, well, what can't you, and one sidewalk was going in, what would it be to put in another sidewalk on the other side of the street, curb and gutter, some other things, as long as you're going to be ripping the street up. And there was a process where, could the village say, we're going to put in an SSA and we're going to put in 2 sidewalks and curb and gutter? Yes, we could do that. But there is a process by which we engage the neighborhood, find out what is the level of support within the neighborhood. Does it have to be unanimous? No. But it's not just going to be 2 people. There will be more information on that, but the idea is ultimately you'd like to make sure that the majority of the neighborhood is in support of the solution that the village would then impose, if that answers the question. And we've done this in other places, so it's not the first time we've done this.
My last comment, I think I'm hearing from the majority of our colleagues that we need the 60 days. So without, I know we can't vote on something like that now, but is there direction from the dais to just say, let's start the clock now, loosely formed clock, I guess is the best way to put it, and get that information going and start that process, instead of waiting 3 weeks and then adding 60 days.
I agree.
The manager says that can be accomplished within that time frame. I think that's a good takeaway for not only us as a council, but for staff, and then of course for the neighbors, so we can start having an idea of calendars and time frames.
I think it's a fair assessment, if everyone else agrees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Walden.
Just to comment on that. 60 days, it needs to be kind of loose. I think it might be adequate time for everybody for the majority of the neighborhood to come to some sort of a decision so we can keep moving forward. If you keep looking at the website, presenting questions, and keep a dialogue going during that time, rather than waiting for the next meeting or that would be a good thing to do. You know, we all want to do what's best for the village, for the neighborhood. Right now, based on, you know, somebody said, oh, you already made up your mind. Well, if you're presented with two options and one looks really ugly and one doesn't, you kind of point in one direction. I'm open to any option, you know, hybrid, anything that would resolve this, not just for this neighborhood, but if this issue comes up elsewhere, I want to be prepared to answer that, you know, for other neighborhoods as well. So we want to do this right, and I said that, you know, in my opening remarks. I had often, you know, somebody suggested calling the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm sure we probably touched upon that. If I could suggest maybe if there was a university that would like to send a bunch of engineering students to come up with creative and wonderful free ideas, that would work too, you know. I mean, I'd love to see that, a major university come in and come up with something better than the expensive dredging, economical, environmentally friendly, good for the neighborhood, good for the village, you know, whatever way we can accomplish that. The other thing, a lot of comments have been made, it's been written in the materials, and the idea that staff has 12 things and we don't have time to do this. If we need to readjust our 12 list, I mean, some of those things have been completed already, some of those things have been adjusted and thrown out. If we need to reassess the priorities in order to get this right, I'm interested in looking at that because I think it's that important. And in the meantime, you know, let's pursue the SSA, let's get all the information out there, other options, you know, whatever we can do. 60 days, you know, if we come up with something in 60 days, good. If it takes 75 days, you know, I want to do this right. And that's the important thing, so. And I'm sure we all do, so. We'll start with 60 days and see what happens then.
Thank you. Well, I think the direction in terms of that aspect of this is clear.
Yes.
And I just want to reiterate on behalf of myself and my colleagues, we do appreciate you being here tonight. We appreciate your input, particularly on this warm, hot, muggy night, sitting here a long time. So thank you for the input. You know, we'll continue to try to work our way through this. But thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments.
That ends our first reading, Mayor.
Thank you. And that brings us to item 9 on our agenda, which is the mayor's report. And I have just one item to report tonight, and that is the village staff is working with Commonwealth Edison, as we previously mentioned, to identify a date for the second annual town hall meeting with ComEd senior executives to discuss how to maintain and enhance electrical reliability in Downers Grove. Residents will recall this came to a head last year. We had a very successful town hall that led to a number of very specific tasks that we were looking to ComEd to perform. Many of those have been performed, and we'd like to think that a variety of factors have contributed in this summer so far being markedly better than last summer in terms of electrical service, but we know there is much more to be done in both the residential and the business community. And so we will be having another town hall meeting with them, and it is tentatively scheduled for the 3rd week in September, but we'll nail that down later. So if you were going to just pick a date, it might be September 20th or something like that, but stay tuned for more details about that second town hall meeting, because this is an issue that continues to be of the highest importance to the community, and the village continues to advocate on behalf of residents, again, both residential and business stakeholders in our community on this important issue. That's all I had under mayor's report. Other than I'm going to use my executive privilege to congratulate Commissioner Durkin and his wife and his family on the recent birth of their new baby girl. Congratulations. All right. We welcome another resident to Downers Grove. And that explains this comment earlier about lack of sleep. Congratulations and our very best to you and your wife and your family. That's all I had on the mayor's report, and that brings it to item 10, which is the manager's report.
Just one item tonight. It's the second quarter report, and our deputy village manager, Mike Baker, will give that report this evening.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. I will keep my
We didn't let you out of here without using the PowerPoint at some juncture, right?
Right. I appear to be working on that. Let's see if I can cycle through one more time. I will keep my comments brief, but we did want to
present this information in a timely manner as we've compiled the results of our second quarter of the year. And I'll touch on key accomplishments that we've achieved in the second quarter and also provide a brief update on our financials as they relate to the general fund. So I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but I'll leave them up for a minute or so just to allow you to take a look at the list. Reflects a lot of the activities that were performed and accomplished within the second quarter, a significant number of contracts that were awarded, primarily for streets and water-related improvements. You're aware of the efforts related to electrical aggregation, and another one that I wanted to highlight, the completion of the 2011 audit, again with no management letter comments from our auditor, which is a very good indication of our financial performance. Turning now to the financials, and we'll look first at revenues as they relate to the general fund. We have a general fund budgeted total annual budget number of $41.35 million. Through the second quarter of 2012, we expected to receive about a little over $21 million. Actual revenues have exceeded that, and we've brought in just over $22 million, a difference of $1.2 million more in revenue than expected. Most of that falls in three revenue sources that have performed better than expected: telecommunications tax, income tax, and building permit revenue. Turning to the expense side, again, we had a balanced budget with expenses at just over $41 million. We spend a little bit less during the first half of the fiscal year, so we expected about $18.6 million in expenses, and that's actually how we're tracking. So we're monitoring those expenses very closely, but overall we think the indications are positive when we look at revenues versus expenses through the first half of the year. And obviously there will be an extensive amount of information coming in the next couple of months as we prepare and release our budget document, which will go into much greater detail on year-to-date activity and the budgeted revenues and expenses for 2013. And that's due to be released at the end of September.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Baker. Any questions from any members of the council of Mr. Baker with respect to the quarterly update? We hope the trend continues. That would be good, especially since we start to head into budget season. That'd be good to know. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 11, Attorney's Report.
I have no report, Mayor.
No report. That brings us to item 12, Council Member Reports and New Business. Commissioner Barnett, you want to kick us off? Commissioner Durkin, you want me to come back to you, or you want to?
I can go. I mean, you mentioned it. You know, my wife and I did bring into this world our new addition to our family. Our third child, Avery Elizabeth, was born on Thursday, the 12th, at 3:53 in the afternoon, at 7.9 pounds and 21 inches long. So she's truly a blessing. She's a great addition to the family. Our 3.5-year-old is all excited and is always warning Mom and I about all the safety measures that we need to take to do, because his toys are very dangerous, and he's referencing his big Tonka truck. So it's rather interesting how the little ones adapt each other. So I appreciate all the prayers and thoughts that were given to my wife and I during her pregnancy. They really hit home, and we're very blessed. And I know a lot of people ask us, you know, how come you have your kids over at Hinsdale Hospital? Well, you know, my wife's doctors are all over there. She's been going up since high school. But I can proudly say that a majority of our daughters, or actually all three of our kids, nurses are Downers Grove residents. And my wife's night nurse has been, lo and behold, has actually been Liz Davis from School District 58 board. So it's really cool. So, you know, even though we're not right here in town, we're right over. We have all Downers Grove residents taking care of those. So thank you. And I promise I'll have a tie on next time. So
you're excused. You're
figured I would.
Official dispensation. Congratulations once again. Commissioner Schnell.
Congrats, but next time you have to bring pictures.
Yeah, I will. I will.
Commissioner Waldeck.
No report, but congratulations to the Durkins.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rankin.
Commissioner Newstead and I and Michael Casa from the EDC met with Bill McAdam from the Downers Grove Park District last week, and it was a very interesting meeting. We talked about ways we could work together and cooperate and I hope that's just kind of precursor to the future. So it was very productive.
Terrific. Thank you for doing that. That's cooperation, communication, collaboration. Love to see it. Commissioner Newstead.
Just quickly, Mayor, I met with Dr. Cremascoli, the new superintendent for District 58 this morning, as the council liaison to the school district. And as an employee of the school district, it's always a little strange to introduce myself and then say I work for you, but I'm also on the village council. Lots of hats this morning. So Dr. Cremascoli is actually looking at moving into the village very soon and wants to get herself acclimated to the Downers Grove way. And I think she's going to be a great addition to our community as a great leader. And I wish her the best of luck. That's all I have tonight.
Terrific. I'm looking forward to meeting with her shortly myself. She was kind enough to reach out, as I thought was a great gesture. A little bit of a scheduling issue, but we're going to work it out till probably sometime next week. But thank you on behalf of all of us for doing that. The only thing I'll mention for my report is that we do have a coffee with the council coming up, coincidentally at Orchard Brook and at the clubhouse, which I believe is located at 1039 35th Street.
1089.
1089 35th Street. I sure remember this. The 3, it's dyslexia, it comes with age. 1089 35th Street. You can't miss it. You basically go west on 35th Street off of Highland Avenue, and it's just past the naturalized area. There's a clubhouse. Next to the pool. Can't miss it. So coffee with the council obviously is an informal opportunity for residents to come down and speak to members of the council as well as some of our senior staff on an informal basis and talk about whatever issues might be on their mind with respect to anything. So we will be there as part of our program trying to move coffee with the council around the community, and the good folks in the Orchard Brook Homeowners Association were kind enough to host it in the clubhouse that's over there, so it'll be nice. Having lived there for 10 years, it'll be nice to be back in my old stomping grounds. So we'll look forward to that. I have nothing further, so with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.